What's up, locals? It's Mike and Kenzie coming to you live from the 775. Your support is what makes this podcast possible, so please don't forget to follow wherever you watch or listen. Now let's get into it. Welcome, Grant, to your favorite locals podcast.
He is my favorite. Thank you.
Welcome.
Yes, welcome. We are so excited to talk to you. One, because you are a community leader here in Reno. You're the founder of the Karma Box Project, and you are making a huge impact with our homeless community here in Reno. So with that being said, we would just love for you to give our listeners a little bit of background on who you are, where the origins of the Karma Box Project came from. Just kind of give us a background on everything you're doing.
It's a trip. They can go a few ways, right?
Yeah.
It can go where I'm like, in the year of our Lord, 1978, it was a stormy night. My mom always says that when she tells me about me being born. She was like, it was a stormy night. And I'm like rain, thunder? She was like, no, it's more of an emotional storm.
Oh.
But I think it was like cloudy. Anyways, she said, no, she says electric storm. Anyways, so I was born and raised in Vegas. I'm going to try to abbreviate it because, and I'm just going to tell you, I'll go down some friggin' rabbit holes.
Yeah.
Pull me out, right?
We'll take you out of it.
I'll ask questions and
Reel
go
me
down
back
the
in.
left
Boom,
Yeah.
boom, bring me back in. And it all makes sense, right? I was born and raised in Vegas. I was, of course, it was a broken home. I say of course, but not an of course, right? It was a broken home. My dad was in and out. My mom had 8 of us, 7 boys and 1 girl.
Damn.
Oh, dude. And we were a Mormon family, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't there's always going to be, you can have an argument against every religion doing weird shit, right?
Totally. Yeah.
People can, the Mormons say this, all the Catholics say that. Well, they're all fucking weird, right? We all do weird shit. And for a minute, it was like, I was mad at the Mormons for whatever. And it could have been the Catholics, it could have been whatever, it could have been anything. So I don't want to, but there are things that happened that, with my dad in and out that that of course caused trauma. Mm-hmm. We don't want to ride on the trauma thing too much because everybody has trauma, right? And so, but the trauma that happened to me, I didn't process it well, right? So it's not what happens to you; it's how you process it and what you do with it. And I was. Then we could get into it later, what it really was. But as in high school, I was a little kind of a bad kid, right? In and out. I got biggest troublemaker in the yearbook.
No way.
Yeah, dude. I was like, well, that was my thing. I was a little guy, I was terrified, right? Because I was raised up in a lower income neighborhood, and you had to fight, right? And I was smaller, and so if you're a small guy, you better be fucking crazy, right? They got to know that they might be able to whoop you, but they'll have to work for it, right? And I ran with a crew, and you don't get to run with crews unless you're a little. You got to bring some value, and so you got to be the crazy guy, So if you're little, you better be fucking crazy, and willing to do anything.
Little man syndrome.
Yeah. Oh no. Wait, no. I was tall. I was skinny. I was like a skinny, tall, skinny kid.
Okay. Skinny man syndrome.
Skinny man syndrome. Yes, I was the skinny man syndrome, and I didn't I didn't start putting weight on me till later in life. So you have to you develop character around what you have. Mm-hmm. So I had to be crazy. I had to be out there. I remember when I was 8 years old. And it was significant for a reason, but I was 8 years old, and my brothers and their friends picked on me a lot, right? Because my playmate was my sister. We were closer in age. Mm-hmm. And so when my mom put her in dance class, she put her in ballet and dance. And she asked all the boys as a joke, we wanted to be in karate. It was the fucking 80s, dude. Everybody was into karate.
Right?
Chuck fucking Norris, dude. Yeah.
You got the slips
Everybody's
on.
hands are registered, right? These are registered weapons, man. I can't fight you, right? Stop it. Stop.
Right, yeah.
Knock it off. Knock it off. They're not registering it. Anyways, so my mom asked all of us, she was like, do any of you want to be in ballet? I was like, I do.
No.
Yeah.
As a joke?
Well, she said it as a joke. I was serious. I didn't know what ballet was. I just wanted to do some shit.
Yeah.
You know, and when you have that many kids, attention is a commodity.
Right.
Right? I wanted attention from my mom no matter what. I didn't give a shit like what my brothers thought, and they called me gay. They called me, girl. I played with dolls with my sister, all the things. And so I got picked on a lot. And they're always telling me, them and their friends picked on me. They're always telling me, how ugly I was. Do you know?
Damn.
They go hard.
At it from all angles.
Yeah, all the things, right? Well, number one, you're ugly.
Yeah. And you're gay. And
you're ugly,
skinny.
you're gay,
Yeah.
right? Mom only likes you because you're developmentally disabled.
Damn, they're just coming at you.
Dude, they told me that, and I believed them because I was like, I am not. And they're like,
my
well, if you were, how would you know?
Right. Oh, no. So psychological play was happening.
They had me. Do you know?
That's the worst.
And so they had my identity. And I remember sitting in the sink when I was 8, and those mirrors, like the medicine cabinet where you can look at your face from all angles.
Yeah.
I remember like investigating my face and I'm not trying to go down this like poor me shit, but I remember like thinking like, man, you are an ugly kid. Do you know?
Damn, they got
I was
you.
redheaded. I was the only kid in the family with red hair. I had freckles, but I bought it. But the thing is, and here's the value in that, is like when I came to terms that they're right, I'm ugly, I was like, well, then you better be funny and tough, or both.
Yeah, develop
so
some personality.
So I really worked on, I would read jokes all the time. I would try, I was always working and trying to entertain, and then the tough part, right? Wanted to be tough, wanted to be funny. And then some shit happened when I was 11 that totally transitioned everything to where I was like, because I was pretty much a straight A student before that. Transition everything, and then you get into junior high and high school, and you're like, fuck everybody. You stop trusting adults. You stop trusting the church. You stop all these people.
all the authority figures out the window.
Anybody is supposed to guide you, and so the only people you trust are the kids next to you. You're not laterally learning. You're learning laterally and not like up. And so, got into being the bad kid, and I rode that, right? I rode that. I was good at being bad, And so when I was in high school, I was a senior, and I just got let out of juvenile hall for a strong-armed robbery and a DUI. And in high school, like, that's cool.
Yeah.
Like I had an identity. I was a bad kid, and they like took a picture of me with me. I was wearing handcuffs, and the cops, I got along good with the cops there. I would hang out in room 911 with them. And anyways, so when I got out of high school, I didn't graduate, and I didn't really have any direction. I got into entertaining on the Strip. I was not like that.
like Chippendales?
Yes, I learned how to pole dance.
Yeah.
I was very good at it.
That's where the ballet comes into play.
I was with this guy. His name was Magical Mike.
Yeah.
We called him. No, I was going to clubs a lot and started selling ecstasy. And back in the 90s, right?
That's right, when it was popping off.
Oh, dude, it was nuts, dude. And then we got into, I met a guy named Mike, and he taught me how to breathe fire and walk on stilts. And so we started,
like circus acts.
Circus acts, but like in the club, yeah?
Right.
And so we started working, he was working with the club
Classier
already.
circus acts.
Yeah, it's a bit of a high-end circus act.
Sprinkling Molly across the crowd.
Everybody, Molly, I'm making it rain, Molly.
Yeah.
For all of you. I mean, your show is a lot better when everybody's high.
Right. Yeah.
Like, we would have to have a show at a certain time, but we knew the crowd wasn't lit enough. We would be like, give it 30 minutes.
That guy's not tweaking enough.
Yeah. That's
Spray
for
some
Carl.
ecstasy.
Get Steven a little more, And we
that's horrible.
But we were doing that for a little while. I did that for like 5 years, where we breathed fire and walked on stilts in nightclubs. And then I found out I was having a kid, and something sparked where I was like, dude, I'm having a son. I'm having a boy. And I wanted something in me was like, dude, I want to be the dad I never had, But the problem is you don't get to like live your whole life without being accountable or responsible or managing your emotions or your trauma, because I was able to run away from it. I had a good regimen of dope and things to where I didn't have to really properly...
you could avoid those feelings.
I could avoid them,
yeah.
Right? And it doesn't make me broken, it makes me efficient, right? People think that, if you're a drug addict, there's something wrong with your brain. No, your brain's just working as efficiently as you trained it to work,
Yeah.
And so for 2 years when I had my son, I was doing good. I was doing really good. I stopped smoking, stopped drinking, got into the gym, was training. My own little story about my son. He went through this. This is going to be told. You might even edit this out, but like
You're good,
you
man.
can
No.
share everything.
This is all part of your
yeah.
backstory.
So and like me and my boy we were so close. Like when he came out of the womb, right? I remember like his little head. He was so strong, a big fat head, little fat. He was like fat kids are so cute. I just want to squeeze the shit out of him.
All the rolls.
He was a
Oh
little
my
fat
God.
kid.
Oh God. His grandma got him a bracelet and his wrists were so fat that every once in a while we'd think that he lost it. We're like, oh my, where'd his, and he'd just roll his fat back and it'd just be hanging out his wrist fat. It was so cute. You just wanted to he was one of those kids, you just wanted to squeeze the shit out of him.
Yeah.
It almost hurt him. Like, I was afraid when I would see him.
How dense are you? Let's
Oh
calm down.
God, you little shit! Get over it. He was so cute, and he went through this. He went through this little dick phase. Matter of fact, he's still going through a dick phase. He's 19 now too. But he went through this phase where one time we were in the shower, and I'd bring him with me, and I'd just hold him up and hose him off on the shower, and then set him behind me, and he would just stand there and just plopped and stare at me. This little fat little fucking kid, and he just stare at me, and then. One day I hosed him off, sat him behind me, and I feel a poke on my leg, and he's poking his little pecker into my calf, and I'm like, what the? Don't touch me with that thing. Don't point that thing at me. And he started laughing so hard. He thought it was the funniest thing, and then he tried to touch me with it again, and I'm like, knock it the fuck off. What are you doing? And we're laughing. I dry him off and I put him outside of the shower, and then he sees his mom doing her makeup on the, against the sink, and he's like, God. And he runs over and he pokes her with it, and I start laughing. He's laughing. His mom's like, what the shit? So for 3 months, this boy went through a phase where he was putting his dick on everything. The door, the fridge.
Now he's 19. Yeah. It's the same thing.
He's 19. He's like, Dad, check it out.
Yeah.
Well, actually, when he was 14, we were in a Walmart. the Walmart dick story.
Oh, no. Walmart always has good stories.
Walmart has so many good dick stories. He was, we're in a Walmart, and we opened the freezer, to look at which pizza is the most out there, fucking get it, deciding which one's going to make the most sense, and grab it and shut it, and it's all fogged up, and he drew a little cock and balls in there.
Oh,
like
no,
his
he
style.
didn't.
Yeah.
I like his
and he's
style.
like, Dad, and I turned around, and I was like, it's good shit, bro.
Oh my God.
And just like when he was a kid, because I laughed at it, he went in the next aisle and drew it on all of them.
Yep.
And I was like, dude, you can't.
Oh,
one's
no.
cool.
Yeah.
But
not 50.
It's predatory, Bob.
Yeah.
Stop, dude.
That's so cool, though. It seems like you guys really developed a bond when he was so young.
Oh, dude, we did. And so that's where things got weird, because when he was about 3 years old, that's when, about 2 years into it, I developed meth. And first with pills, I started taking pills of the, having a kid. Had a job, all the things. I hunkered down, was being responsible, and then I broke a bone here and got pain pills. I'm not going to blame it on the industry, right? But back then that was like this when they were really pushing oxys and that whole gig, and
slinging it through as a whole entire. What is it called? Something Express, Oxycontin Express.
Yeah, dude. I mean, we had a doctor that we would go to, and that was that when it was so easy to get pills, and so I got caught up in that, and then with pills for me came meth, and then
something to get up because you were feeling pretty down.
Yeah, and then there's a combination, and then you learn. And then after a while, you're able to manage things for a little bit, dude. The reason I brought up my son is because you'll have people say, you have kids. Why don't you do it for your kids? Mm-hmm. You can't, it's not about your kids, right? If it was about your kids, you wouldn't be doing it to begin with. If you have kids right now and we're actively using, it's not about your fucking kids, So we don't make it about that, right? There's a few motivations, right? But your kids shouldn't be one of them to get clean. And so anyways, I had it kind of together, but I was using I was a functional user. I was able to get high, and I would frame it out, be this pill on this day, this pill at this time, and then,
Wow.
And you can do it for a little while, but it's not going to last. I don't give a shit what anybody says. You'll either die or you'll tear your way down. You do it by what's okay, right? What do you allow yourself to do, right? For me, it was first, it's usually their job that goes first. You stop performing well at your job. And I did lose my job. And instead of addressing why I lost my job, drugs, I just got another job. Mm-hmm. And I'm still doing drugs. I'm still doing the same thing why I lost my job in the first place. And then I lose that job. And then instead of addressing why I lost that job, I get another job.
Starts cascading that way.
Yep. And now I turn into Grant who loses jobs. That's my identity. I'm Grant who loses jobs. Then it's Grant who loses relationships because my wife will eventually leave me because it's not adding up, or I'm keeping things from her, or my behavior, right? And then I'll just replace her with somebody else. But I didn't address the root cause of why I was. And then it's you lose house, and then it's car, and all these things start happening, and then you become Grant who doesn't have a job, doesn't have a house, doesn't have a car, and you set it up like that. It's over a course of time where you start tearing your way down. It's the tears of suffering. Yeah, and you start tearing your way down, and eventually you're at a bus stop. You're like, how the fuck did I get here? And what happens then is you get to a place where you're rock bottom. And it depends, right? Some people have hit a rock bottom that's relatively up here, and they're like, they turn it around. But a lot of us will hit a rock bottom, and then we dig, and we dig. And when you get to a certain point of addiction, it's you can stop using. Fair enough, right? You go to detox, enough terrible shit happens. You go to detox, and or you go to jail.
That's what I figured is you go to jail, you have a temporary detox point unless you get drugs into jail, which does happen too sometimes.
It's anything that pulls you out of the element. You go there and you're pulled out of the element, and your brain clears up a little bit, and you start to be like, fuck, man. You start to take accountability, understand your role and how you got there. Fuck, is it drugs? Maybe, But the problem now is you're just Grant that doesn't do drugs. You've already created an identity. You could stop doing drugs. You're still the same person. So now you don't just have a drug problem. You have an identity crisis. So most of us that are addicted and gotten our ways to, worked our way down to homelessness or a certain point, like we don't even know who we are, and that takes a lot of years, right? You have to reinvent yourself. You have to become a new person. It's difficult, and so that's what you get clean and you're optimistic, a little bit optimistic, and then you realize that you don't even know who the fuck you are. And now, the go-to is what you know. Like, I can be a really good drug addict, or I can suck at all these other things.
Yeah.
Right? So I'll just be a homeless drug addict. It's what I know. Not that I want to be. It's
what's familiar. It fits into that narrative, and that's what
yeah. My wife was really good. I was really good. She was always the kids would always campaign to have their dad. I had another son as well. But when I was actively using, my wife at the time, their mom, was always hoping that I would get my shit together.
Yeah, I would come back, yeah.
Because I could do it, right? I could pull it back together. I remember my mom told me once, because I would go out, fuck things up, be on the streets, steal money from the family, do all these things. I really punished my family, right, for my terrible way of life, because I blamed my family in a way, I didn't take...
For being where you were at
that
time.
It's real easy to be like, these motherfuckers,
But got 3 point
Yeah.
Well, and you caused the trauma. You caused
easier
the trauma.
to say that. And then when you look at you, it gets pretty tough. So as long as I can keep blaming it on them, I'll be okay, right? Which couldn't be further from the truth. My mom would say, like, it's like you keep breaking this vase, like a vase, every time I come back, and I'm like, dude, I'm clean, I'm doing great. And I could do that. I did that well. I came back well. I got clean. I'm charismatic. I'm likable. I can be a funny guy. And so they would trust me and believe me. And they also wanted me to be better. And then I would fuck that off. And so in the course of that, she was always trying to help me and would push me away because she had to,
Yeah.
My mom had to trespass me from the house. My grandma had to, it was, and they had to do those things. So when I went to the streets and that, like this gradual work to the streets, it was always this back and forth, and it's like, and you look at the other person and people are like, well, why would they keep taking you back? Abusive relationships, things that are damaging to you. And they talk about like this hammer, this hammer theory where at 7 a.m, I knock on the door, Kenzie answers, and I fucking hit her in the head with a hammer. And Kenzie's like, are you serious right now? And it hurts so bad, but you survive it, right?
Yeah.
And so it gives you this you're rewarded with a good feeling, right? You made it, right? You survived that. It hurt, but you survived it. And then the second morning, at 7 o'clock, knock on the door. You're like, Grant, oh shit? And I do it again. You're like, seriously? Again? 2 days in a row?
Right.
You fucking piece of shit, really? And third day, boom, do it again. Fourth day, boom. I do this for a month and a half. Every morning, hit you in the head with a hammer. It's painful, but you survive it. You're rewarded with a good feeling. And then, and we do this for about a month and a half. And after a month and a half, on a Wednesday, there's no knock at the door, and I'm not there, and you're confused, and you're like, well,
where are you?
Where's the hammer?
And you're kind of like, all right, cool. I'm not going to get hit with a hammer. But now you just went from Kenzie who gets hit in the head with a hammer to just regular old Kenzie. Now you're like, now you don't know what, and you don't get that reward, right? You don't get rewarded with a good feeling. And so after a few days, you're going to be like, hey, Grant, remember the hammer? And you're going to ask for the hammer. And so like we go through these things where we're doing damage, but it becomes who we are. And then that's, even though it hurts, it's all we know. And so we'll ask for something back. I remember getting locked up, and you're always in this series of going to jail, getting released, going to jail. When I would go to jail, I'd be clear. It would clear up. My head would clear up, and I would, when I would leave, it's always a good idea to erase all the douchebags in your phone. And my phone was like a whole fucking catalog of douchebags. And I would erase all of them, and it'd be like 2 numbers, my mom and my granny. And so I would erase all the douchebags. I would want to start over again. But within a matter of time, maybe 2 weeks, I'd be lonely again, and you have to create a new world, right? You have to
community,
yeah, and it just hanging out with mom and granny just doesn't cut it, know? They're like, get the fuck away from me.
Right.
Too much, dude. So hanging out with mom and granny doesn't cut it, and you get lonely. And so it gets to a place where I would seek them out. I would go to those, because even though I know, like, it's like knowing somebody when they tell you they love you is lying to you, but I would rather somebody lie to me than nobody say it at all.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you get caught up in that gig, and that was my story, and then, and I had another son, and but I was still actively on the streets, and that went on for a minute until I got locked up and was facing a little bit of time.
And when you were in Vegas,
yeah,
when that was happening.
Uh-huh.
So when you were living on the streets, were you in the tunnels? Where were you?
Used to hang in the tunnels with some boys, but no, that was around. So it was around 2011. So remember 2008, everything crashed.
Everything fell apart. Yeah,
so, and so there was this wave of these homes that were being abandoned, just left there. And so I was doing a lot of squatting. Yeah. Right, you walk in a neighborhood. And you'll see the grass and the weeds are overgrown. It's an indicator that no one's living there. You see a few newspapers, stacking up on the driveway.
Green light right there.
Yeah, and then so we would squat. So there's a lot of squatting. There's a couple of churches that I would sleep outside of the churches. One that was close to my kids, to my kids' mom's house, so I could be kind of close there. So I had a little system, and then and part of that was going to jail, detox, hospital, and then you cycle. You go to you go to the transitional house, halfway house. So it was like just this peppered gig of squatting, live streets, transitional housing.
Yeah, that's got to be fucking terrifying to be sleeping on the streets the first time, because I imagine your shit gets jacked a lot.
For sure, my shoes got stolen off my feet.
While you were sleeping?
For sure. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a bad way to wake up. You're just like,
How do you not know that someone's taking
You're up
shoes
for
off of
7
you?
days.
Oh, and then you're sleeping
Yeah,
for 7
they
days.
could. Yeah, they could change your whole outfit.
Yeah.
You could like end up on a plane. You're like, what the, like they can change your whole identity. Oh
my gosh.
You're made up and shit. You
Yeah.
look great, and you're in a tux. Like, what the fuck? No, but
It was all a dream.
I almost went into Biggie right there. Yeah, well, yeah, you're up for long enough, dude. Yeah, people
Yeah.
can do
eventually you
some-
just have to crash and body goes on reset mode for a minute.
Oh yeah, you'll shut the fuck down. You don't get to. So that happened once, and I put my kid in danger doing that. Like where I passed out, and my son was 3 years old. I was supposed to be. Well, you should never you should never let a guy like me, at that time, be in charge of anything, let alone a kid.
Yeah.
So how old were you when all of this was going down? Like how old were you when you first started?
So 25 to about to 34.
Wow, for almost
9
10
solid
years.
years,
Yeah.
Yeah, just in and out of the system, doing dumb shit. And
Okay.
yeah.
Wow. So you were in Vegas for the majority of that. When did you come
All of
to
it.
Reno?
I came to Reno, so I got clean. Facing 5 to 7 in prison, and like when you're living that lifestyle, like prison's a retirement plan.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I was glad. I was like, all right, cool. 5 to 7. I'll get my weight up. You know.
Yeah.
Lots in a
bit of
car,
work.
We'll have like
something to do for a little bit.
bed,
Take a little
food.
bit. Yeah. Set up shop. No, I'm good. Dude, get some tattoos. I had some ideas. I was
Yeah.
it's not, thank God, like I didn't get my
Oh
face.
my
right?
God.
Oh my God. Right. I barely missed the face tattoo era.
Wow.
You know, like there was back then, it was like if you have a friend that has no tattoos, they're like a unicorn.
Yeah.
Now, if you have a friend that has no face tattoos, they're like a unicorn.
Yeah.
Like, I almost like, I remember like I wanted to get a face tattoo so bad. It was going to be of a better looking guy.
No, my God. That's like how?
Is this Mr. Brad Pitt here before us? No.
So face surgery is really where you were going.
Yeah, so reconstructive surgery.
Botox.
Yeah, no biggie. No, but I was so glad I missed that because that was like when you were going to, but like that was the gig, and I'll do well.
It's like you're going in different phases, but the phases seem to get more hard, more tough. Like it seems like it gets worse.
I don't know if it's tougher, right? Because you just adapt, right? Yeah. So right now, living on the streets for me would be weird because I've adapted I've changed my survival mechanisms, right? I know how to survive in this well, and I would have to shift, again, like as you go down, I don't. I've had people say that, like, they're like, oh, it must have been terrible living on the streets. I'm like, because we get it fucked up when we're like, drugs are bad. No, drugs are fucking great, right?
Yeah.
What other way? Like, there's no other way to feel like a god right now.
Not just that, but also when you're homeless, why would you want to be sober on the
Get
streets?
the fuck out of here.
Right.
That sounds awful.
Well, so, and like, that's it too, is like, we expect these, and I'm not like advocating, I understand harm reduction, I do,
Yeah.
but I'm not advocating that like it's okay for people to do drugs, but drugs are drugs, right? It's not the drugs problem, right? It's us. Like, we're the issue, right?
How you interface with it.
Yeah, dude, and I like when it's a coping mechanism. It's real easy, like and it's a coping mechanism. And one thing's for sure is when you don't have consistent relationships, jobs, places to sleep, the only thing that's consistent is dope. Every time I shot up, I got high. It did exactly what it was supposed to do. Every time I drink, I got drunk. It did exactly what it was supposed to do. And so if you want to, like, for me, like, I needed to put something in my life that's as consistent as dope. Mm-hmm. And what could that be? And that, and the different things for different folks, but it's more, the best thing is another person, right? Who's going to be consistent for you, like, show up like dope. It's tough to find somebody that shows up like dope,
100%, yeah. So you were homeless for about 9 years, you said?
Yeah.
In and out of jail and in between. How did you get out of homelessness?
So that was it. And that's going to have to be, I believe that it's not easy to get out unless you're pulled out of the element. Yeah. Right. Being in the element and pulling out is really difficult. I was facing 5 to 7. And while I was locked up, I caught another charge. Something caught up with me. And so I was facing, and so I got another sentencing.
While you were in.
While I was in.
For a different thing.
I was, yep. It was a burglary charge because I had pawned something and it caught up to me. And so I got another charge, went to court, and they're like, dude, do you want to try drug court? Do you have a drug problem? And before, when they asked me if I had a drug problem, I was like, no.
Yeah.
So I thought that would make me look bad. And actually, like, you know, doing all this dumb shit sober makes you look dumb. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
you might be able to help on one side, but on the other, you're fucked.
Yeah. And so they offered me drug court. And so I went to a rehab for 3 months, went to drug court after that. But in that time waiting for the rehab was about 8 months. And man, what helped me was the time, the time being out, having a paradigm shift, right? A lot of things happened. Like when I was in jail waiting to go to treatment, I learned about frequency, about like, you know, quantum entanglement, right? Whoever you're next to, like your particles you're gonna have a particle exchange, and you'll never be the same after you met me, and I'll never be the same after I met you. There's something that we've exchanged particles, you know, just by nature of being next to each other. And I was paid attention. I was reading books about frequency and all the things. And then and at the same time as I'm learning, I started to separate myself from the prison group and just isolated while I was locked up. I isolated, I exercised. I was thinking like, dude, if I'm 34 years old, I haven't had a career. I haven't had a fucking real job or anything. I don't have any skills. Like, what the fuck am I gotta be stupid. Right? And I have kids I haven't fathered. I got to be stupid. And I thought, like, if I'm going to be stupid, I'm going to be the best looking dumb dude. So I was just fucking training, dude. I was push-ups, pull-ups. I created a
jacked.
Oh, dude, no, I'm going to be the yoked, dumbest motherfucker out there. And but what I was doing, and I read later, is that, you know, there's that commercial that says that where they take an egg and they fry it on a pan. They're like, this is your brain.
This is your brain on drugs? Yeah.
Oh, watch it now. You're like, what the fuck? They let that out?
Oh, no. It's like, I think it had to do with acid, though. Like, it was like some specific drug.
That was what they were pointing at, but if you're high and you watch them frying an egg, you're like, that looks kind of good right now.
Yeah. Well, I know. They just made us hungry. A whole generation of kids hungry for eggs when they get high.
Yeah.
No. Well, I think the messaging was bad, right? It was true that you're going to fry your brain. Drugs do fry your brain, right?
Yeah.
Do enough meth, it will change you forever. Mm-hmm. And so when I would get clean, I would remember that commercial. Be like, well, shit, my brain is fried. Like, how am I going to?
Oh, so it's creating this bias.
Yeah. Like, dude, what the fuck am I going to do? My brain's fried. But they were right about that. You can fry your brain. What they didn't tell you, though, is that you can grow a whole new brain. Mm-hmm. You know?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, there's a book when I was, and thank God my granny was feeding me with books. And there was a book called Spark. And in that book, it talks about BDNF, brain-derived neuropathic factor. And it's the miracle grow for the brain that actually helps promote neuroplasticity, right? Where you can create new pathways and it lubricates these pathways. And the best thing you can do to create that protein is to exercise and learn, right?
Usually through extreme discomfort too.
Oh, yep.
It has to be something that you usually don't want to do.
Yep.
And it's hard, and that you grow just like that same reward pathway you were talking about with the hammer.
Yep.
Like it's looking for that the next day.
Yep. New pathways, new ideas, different environments, like things like that. And so when I was working out and reading, because I didn't read that book till later, but when I was working out and reading, I was growing a new brain. So I was like, well, fuck the old brain. I can get a new one. Get the fuck out of here.
Some new shit.
Yeah. I'm going to be a brand new guy, and you could do whatever the fuck you want. The greatest thing you can't fuck with somebody that's lost everything.
Yeah.
Because they got nothing to lose. We can do a lot of shit, right? And so I embraced all of this shit, right? And when I got out, I knew that I was going to be something big. I wanted to do big stuff, but I also know that I needed help. Mm-hmm. And so when I got out, I asked anybody that was successful if they would mentor me.
That's a
they would mentor. Oh, dude, man, I'm asking folks. And so, anyways, I got clean real quick. I moved up the ranks in sober living real quick. I was became a house manager, became intake manager, became a director of a sober living group. Moved out to Reno to do sober living. Brought my son out with me. Then eventually brought my other son out with me. And it was pretty rocky because, you know, you move to a place you don't know anybody. And it was pretty rocky at first. But eventually I got a job, and this is where like the Karma Box gig kind of launched off, is eventually I got a job at a methadone clinic, the Life Chain Center.
Here in Reno.
Here in Reno, yeah.
And they still exist today. Okay.
Yeah.
I did not know about them.
Oh yeah, and I got a job there being a peer support director, and I excuse me, I created a program called the Spartan program, where I would take folks out that were clients, and I would take them out volunteering. We would go rake yards, paint walls, do things like that, and. But it was actually harder to find people to let you do shit.
Yeah.
You know, than you think. You'd be like,
I imagine some of them arm's distance.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. We're good.
Yeah. So it was like, hey, can me and a bunch of convicts clean your yard real quick? No.
Right.
That's weird.
Oh, there's some good scrap metal over there.
I know. Well, who knows what people think, but like we weren't getting the gigs like we thought we were, and it was inconsistent. And I know for programming, especially with drug, you better be consistent.
Yeah, you got to have a routine.
And so what would be consistent is like, what if we made these boxes, right? In one of the groups, we sat down and talked, and they were like, let's do library boxes. I'm like, I don't remember when I was homeless ever thinking like, where is a good novel that I could read? Like, nobody gives a shit about novels when you're homeless. Yeah. No, I don't want to read your fucking James Patterson. You know, like, nobody gives a shit about James Patterson when you're homeless. We were like, what?
That should be a poster.
I know.
So
Nobody fucking gives a shit about that guy. No, but what if you could put non-perishable food items in there, hygiene items, a razor, socks, little things that we need.
Yeah.
And it was just going to be us that filled. So we built these boxes. We sucked at building boxes. We had to enlist the help of my buddy Scotty. Scotty came in, showed us how to build boxes. And then I ended up, and we would put them somewhere, paint them up, put them somewhere. It was supposed to be us that fill them. But when the news got a hold of it, the community saw it and they really wanted to get involved. So now it's not about boxes and shit. Now it's about community engagement, right?
100%.
So, okay, now we got to angle it to where it's getting people bought into an idea. And you're not going to save anybody's life with a friggin' box or a granola bar. But what it does do is plant seeds of civic responsibility, right? You can take your kids to put something in a box, and in a small way, they did help, right? You didn't, and so again, it was the problem it was solving wasn't the hunger or things problem. It was solving the hope problem, right? Giving people a little bit of hope and getting people engaged. Because it's important that everybody in this group, right? We're in this community, this group of folks, that we all know that we have a role bigger than our jobs.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to just be on this boat and not fucking row. That is all. Do you know? And so even if it's little shit, right, this gets you into thinking bigger, right? And so like that was the philosophy of these boxes, right? We get folks bought into doing shit even in a small way, because you don't get to just do a little bit of shit. Well, you do, but it'll like something about that will feed you. It's another way of getting high, not to be a weirdo, but
it totally is.
Yeah.
When you do something good, it feels great. And you're like, all right, I'm on the right course. I'm going to keep doing that.
Yeah. And you're outside of yourself and that whole gig. And so I started doing that. And during COVID, and the boxes went from 1 in August of 2018 to 60 I don't know, there's about 60 in 2020, right?
Damn.
And some die, new ones come up.
That's
some
what
die,
I figured.
new ones
Some
come up.
probably get fucked up from cars from time to time.
People vandalize them. I've seen people fight a box. We've seen it on camera. It's just what are you gonna do? Right?
Drunk Reno kids.
Yeah. That box ruined my life.
Right.
Well, what happened was the guy, I saw the boxes vandalized. I'm like, what the shit? There happened to be a camera.
Yeah.
I went over there and I watched the security footage, and what happened was the guy grabbed something out of it and didn't shut the door, and the door snagged his shirt, and he was like, what the f-? And he hit the door, and the door, boom, and smacked him back. The door fought back. and when it hit him back, he karate kicked it. But
It was on.
He didn't karate kick it right away. He set his stuff down and then karate kicked. Like this is, and it was so entertaining. I wasn't even mad. I was like, oh, that was nice. I was like, that we pulled the box out because he
got karma.
Yeah, it came right back. He got karmically slapped by that box. Dude. How about being bitch slapped by a box? Yeah. A karma box. Like, it was so funny. Anyways, they get beat up and all that. But you know, so there's this, you know, give and take. Some of them die, some are reborn, all the things, right? And it's a community initiative, so you don't have to do much. The community wants to, they'll do it, right? They want to do it. And so it doesn't take that much other than just a cheerleader, right? Someone's got to be really excited about it and get other people excited about it. And, but in June of 2020, right in the middle of COVID.
Oh, gosh.
What an interesting.
We have an ornament that's like a really cute snowflake.
Yeah.
But then when you look closer, it says, fuck 2020, fuck 2020.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Well, you know, it was so interesting. God. And it was, how fortunate we are to live through that because we learned so much from it, right? Like we're going to tell our grandkids, we were alive during one of the weirdest.
It's like
fucking mind.
Yes.
We
were alive during one of the weirdest pandemics ever. What was it? We don't know. We still don't know. Nobody knows. It's weird. That's how weird it was. I remember like being terrified. And it was interesting is like, you know, like the only normal place in the city was the homeless camp.
Yeah. Life went on.
Nobody's like
arm's distance. Yeah.
I remember like I saw a guy, it was right before it really shut down and before we were at the Believe sign and we were doing something there and I saw a guy and he had a mask. I'm like, oh, hey, what's up, man? I started walking towards no. I'm like, oh. It was like, it was such rejection. It hurt me. I was like, what a weird fucking world, man. And he wasn't even cool. Like, it was just some
You're like, I was just gonna hug you.
Yeah, now I got a goober guy that doesn't
right.
Like, if he was a little cooler, I'd be like, well, okay.
Yeah. But like, you're not even
a little
cool.
Yeah.
It broke a lot of people.
Huh?
COVID broke a lot of people.
Ah, God.
Like the social factor, I think there were so many other contributing factors where I'm sure the homeless population grew from like that entire 2, 3, 4 year process. But socially, people are fucked up from COVID. We don't treat each other the same since.
Yeah.
And it's been this rebuilding that I've noticed over maybe a year and a half.
Yeah, there's a lot of
strangers and you're like, are you cool? I don't know if you're cool or not.
COVID really fucked up handshakes for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Right now, especially after COVID. During COVID, we learned how to elbow a little bit.
Right.
We learned how to like.
I'm stoked you gave me a hug. I'm like, this guy's cool.
I know. Yeah, that was like such a refreshing gesture.
Oh, well, like now you'll go in and guys are like, are you like
you do the jellyfish?
Really,
it's like,
yeah, what do we? You know, just really fucked up handshakes. There was this time at the shelter where because I worked at Record Street. Just a real quick story. It's so funny.
Yeah.
Is what you become conditioned to is when I first worked at the shelter, like on Record Street, I was jazzed up, man. I mean, if you love what you do, you know, like it's. I just love showing up to work. It's tough, of course, but there's you know, just for this goodness, you'll put up with all this bullshit, right?
Yeah.
For this, and I remember when I would show up, the folks in the wheelchairs would. You know, and the mobility scooters, I would park right there and they would roll up and be like, good morning, Grant. I'd be like, good morning. I would hug everybody, hug them, squeeze them. And you know, some of us aren't really wiping our nose like we should.
Yeah.
And so I would have boogers on my sleeves.
Yeah.
And, you know, you'd have to manage that later. But like
earning your stripes.
Yeah. Oh, that literally, you earn your freaking stripes. If you don't got boogers on your sleeve, you shouldn't be working in this industry.
Yeah.
Like this guy's new. He doesn't have the boogers necessary. But like I come in, I would hug them all, and it got my friend was telling me, he's like, dude, you just got it. I'm not telling you not to do it, but you're gonna get really sick one day because you're gonna catch something. And I'm like, I don't care, bro. Whatever, man. I'm willing to. And then I got real fucking sick. This is before COVID, but I got sick where it was like took me out for like 3 days, and 3 days is a long time for me to not do anything. And I remember when I came back, they were so excited to see me, but I was like terrified. I didn't want to hug because it was a beating, like that cold me up, dude. Like,
wow.
physically, you know.
Were you bedridden? Like, what was?
I was couch ridden.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to the hospital, all the things. I had some sort of a flu, but I was completely fatigued. Like,
And did you get it from hugging someone who was homeless?
I'm sure maybe not. It could have been hugging really.
Could have been the guy telling you, "Hey, man, I don't know if you should."
Fucking guy.
Yeah.
Now that I got to start thinking about it.
Right.
Yeah, start researching your friends, pal. No, but either way, I was like, I got to stay away from people. And then I remember I pulled up. And they all started rolling towards the car. Grant, you're back. Grant. And they're moving their things. And then I didn't want to like hug, but I didn't want to do anything. And I was like, guys, I was sick. I don't want to get you sick. I just got to boop you on the head. And so they would lean forward and I would boop them in the heads, the whole lineup. And then when, but it got to where when I would pull up, they would pull up and like put their heads down. And I would just boop them on the heads on my way in the office. It was so great.
That's hilarious.
It's like a goofy ass version of Duck Duck Goose. Just
oh my gosh, that's so
love. But so, anyways, back to COVID. We I started the nonprofit in COVID. It was right then there was camps that were coming up underneath the Wells Bridge, and these camps were growing, and there was a shelter in place from the CDC saying that you can't move any of these tents because it will contribute to the spread of COVID. So wherever somebody set a tent, that's where it was. And the best place at that time was along the river, right? Because the river is like a perfect infrastructure, right? For being homeless. It's running water. You can clean things.
Wash hands, wash clothes.
Yeah.
Get water.
Yeah. No, it's
all of it.
And so I started the nonprofit doing outreach around the Portland Lou there at Broadhead Park, and then was working in the camps, and realized that you're not going to just walk up to somebody's tent and be like, "Hey, bro, are you ready to change your life?" And they'll be like, "Yeah, let me just grab my shit." Like, nobody's going to do that, right?
Even tell you to fuck off real quick.
No, so are you implying that there's something wrong here? You know, you're not allowed to do that. Well, you can, but you're not going to get really far. And so the best thing to do, so I had to build relationships. So how do you build relationships? Is solve a problem. Right, help somebody solve a problem, and so the problem I started to help them solve was there's two issues in a homeless camp. There's among other issues, but there's two main ones. Right, it's environment and behavior. Right, and so there's going to be a shit ton of trash because they don't have this magical trash.
It's like single-use lifestyle a lot.
Yeah, for sure. And so there's a lot of trash and there's behavioral issues, right? And so I'm not going to help with the behavioral issues right now. What can I help with now is the trash. So I would go get trash bags, and I would be really specific about how I helped. I would walk down the whole spread, the whole lineup. It was from the back of Ace's ballpark, all the way to Sutro, underneath the Wells Bridge there, along the railroad tracks.
That's a long distance too.
It's about maybe half a mile, but in that half a mile, you had about 350 people.
Which is a lot.
Yeah. Oh, for sure, dude. And so I would walk that whole span, and just whoever was there, I'd be like, hey, do you want me to help you clean up your spot, dude? I can go grab trash bags and help you out. And they're like, yeah, sure. I was like, hey, do you want me to throw this out? You know, and I would volunteer to work, but then I would promise to come back with bags. I wouldn't bring the bags with me at first intentionally because I wanted to make a promise that I had that I could keep. Right. So
become a consistent factor showing up.
Yep. So when I would, and then when I'd come back, they'd be like, oh, you really came back, man. You know, and so we're like building trust. And so we started just cleaning up trash out there, And then we started a program with the county, and it called the River Stewards. And so I would grab, people in the camps, be like, hey, which one of you guys want to make some money today? And we'd give them gift cards for helping us clean up the river. And we spent 4 hours going up and down the river cleaning up trash. But that was just a vehicle, so we could. At the time, the county had started what they call a by name list, where in order to tackle your homeless problem or start to address it, you have to know your homeless folks by name. And so
okay.
So we started to collect data. We started to use this program to collect data, and also it would start to invite other homeless agencies to start putting data into this by name, onto the by name list. And so so it was a vehicle to get to know people, to get folks off the streets, but to start a bigger process of addressing the issue, and it was perfect timing, because right shortly after they built the CARES campus. Then after the CARES campus, we realized that from being in the camp, we realized that like you need an alternative to just a shelter. And so they pitched the county on a safe camp. Like, what if we just had a camp that was sanctioned, where if they don't want to live in an illegal camp, at least we have a legal camp. And they approved it for an emergency gig, and we're like, all right, dude, you got 3 months. Let's do a pilot, and if you fail, and what does fail look like? Fail looks like nobody's getting off the streets. You're not getting anybody into shelter. You're not getting anybody into housing. You burn the place down. And if you fail, we just, no funding.
They just
no
bulldoze
harm, no
the
foul.
site and call it.
You pull it, and then we didn't fail. We did really well. We started housing people right out of the gate. It was tough, but like, it was a better setting than housing someone from the streets. So it's hard to work with people if you don't have them. So now we have them. Now we're working them. Now we're learning how to work with folks when you got them. How can you leverage this exchange of, you can have this tent in here, nobody will ask you to leave as long as you work on this housing plan.
So question real quick, with a safe camp, does it have the same structure and rules as like a shelter does, where you can't bring certain things into it, can't bring substances?
Yeah, can you explain the differences, like illegal like camp or space, safe camp, and then the pods?
Yeah, so one's, of course, congregate, one's non-congregate. There's different models of sheltering, right? For example, there's wet shelters. Wet shelters, you can drink inside, right? You can drink there. You can, the wet shelters never really let you do drugs inside there, but some do, right? But there's wet shelters. And what problem does a wet shelter solve? That solves the optics problem. At least you're not on the street drinking. We have you in here drinking. I strongly
What is a wet? So it's a building that is just blocked off from the public and is only allowed to the homeless people? Like, I guess I haven't ever seen or heard of a wet shelter before.
Place with, well, there's traditionally beds there, right? You can sleep here. You can come hang out here. You can drink here. It's fine. There are some minimal rules, so it's low barrier. It's below barrier, right?
Okay.
As long as you're not on the streets, drinking on the streets, you can come here. Then there's low barrier. Low barrier is you don't have to be sober, but you can't drink or do drugs here.
Got it.
And so that's what we have, right? So you have to start with low barrier. I believe in that, but I also believe in tiering up, right?
Yep.
So whatever we do to get you. And so you look. So our safe camp started out with tents, and we thought we were going to stay at tents. Until you realize that people aren't supposed to live in tents. Yeah. You should not, like, it's for a weekend, maybe.
Yeah,
you weren't
go
designed.
out to the wilderness for a weekend, and then you're like, fuck this, I want a bed.
That's it, dude, right? And so, so we set up these tents, and the problem with that is that you would think, so there's zipper breaks in a week. So we have somebody that we're responsible for that has an open door there, and it's cold outside.
So we have 4 seasons, and it gets fucking cold sometimes.
Yeah. So how do you manage that? So do we make them responsible for it and allow them to modify their own tents? Because if you allow them to modify their own tents, then you have to put a system in place that manages the modifying. How much can you modify? Can you use 2x4s and build your own structure? Yeah. So now you have to manage how they're going to modify it. Okay, so we don't want to do that. I don't want my staff to do that. I want my staff to stay focused on housing people and keeping order. And so then we were like, well, let's just get them new tents. Well, now your staff, because it happens so much that these tents are getting ripped and zippers are breaking and all the things, that now we're the tent replacement staff. Mm-hmm. You don't want to be the tent replacement staff. And then winter comes. I stayed out there for a week in the summer and a week in the winter so we can build these policies. And then winter comes. And if you're not actively wiping the tops of these tents in certain days, they're going to collapse. Yeah. And so now we're the tent sweeper guys. Now we have to set up. Now we have to find warmers for how can we keep them warm in there, because layering isn't enough.
People can freeze to death.
Oh, dude. Yeah. And so we tried things like we put because in the streets they do it, right? They have systems in the streets, but that requires modifying of the tents, right? So you can put there's foil tents that they use, right? If you take a foil blanket, right? If you take a foil blanket and duct tape it, when I was doing outreach, the back of my truck was all foil blankets and all duct tape.
Wow.
Because if you can insulate the inside of a tent with this foil blanket and duct tape, and you're fucking set. You take a tarp and lay a tarp in between a blanket, a tarp, and another blanket, you will steam up underneath the snow. We've pulled people out of tarps where a billow of steam comes right out, and the person is sweating under there. So there's things to do, right? But it's still like, we don't want to be the make sure you stay alive folks. We want to, of course we want you to stay alive, but we want to be the focused on housing folks. And so they invested in mod pods, these modular pods that are put together kind of like Legos, electricity in them, air, heating, air, has a bed, has storage for stuff, a certain amount of stuff, and it's your own spot and a door that locks.
Yeah.
Right. And it's one of the most brilliant innovations to homelessness, to solve homelessness. If you use it properly, if you do it properly, you don't get these mod pods and be like, all right, guys, there you go.
Right.
Good luck on getting housed.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
they need the skill sets.
Yeah,
they don't have any life expertise, really.
And it's not a destination.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where it comes in, is where you have to get these pods. And we knew that if we wanted to be successful, you have to create a system that models one you want them to succeed in. Right. When you're on the streets, there's 4 constants when you're homeless, right? You're subject to the elements. Your shit's going to get stolen. You're going to have to physically defend yourself, because this is how we resolve conflict. This is how we shop. And you're always on someone else's property. So you're always asked to move, right? So you're always in this condition of fight or flight, right? Where you're guarded. And there's 2 things you can't do at once. You can't grow, because you're exposed, your underbelly's exposed, and you're vulnerable, and you can't protect yourself. And when you're on the streets, you're protecting yourself. So you're not focused on growing. It's hard to grow when you're
you're in survival mode.
Yeah.
For sure. So it's important that we get folks in. So that's the difference between the shelter with a safe camp is we're non-congregate, where they get their own spot, and it's more acute case management where we can work with them closer, and you get the more difficult cases. Like the shelter, I believe in our shelter. Our shelter is good. You're taking. Just keep in mind, you're taking folks that are severely mentally ill. Some are just mentally ill, and then we have to define, all right, well, what's mentally ill? What's severely mentally ill, right? Severely mentally ill is any illness, whether it's personality disorders, whether it's schizophrenia, whether it's bipolar disorder, but it does where you cannot function.
Yeah, some form of psychosis.
Where you can't function at all. So that's severely mentally ill. And then you have your regularly mentally ill, and I say regular, but you know what I mean. And then you introduce drugs, right? And drugs is a coping mechanism, chicken and the egg thing, co-occurring, whatever it is. And you take all these folks and you put them in one spot, and it's difficult, right? It's difficult to manage that many people, but we do have a good spot there at the campus. It's just you're on bunks with people.
Yeah,
and it's an easier negotiating tool when you have the pods are easier to negotiate. So somebody who's like, fuck your shelter, I'm never going to go there. I've been to shelters, and usually it's bad experiences they've had before that don't exist anymore, right? There was this thing that it's not safe there.
Right.
Well, it's safer there than it is on the streets. I promise you that. It's safer there than it is at a concert.
Right.
No bullshit. You'll get more fights at a 4-hour concert where people are drinking than you will at a 550-person shelter in a 24-hour period. Because there's oversight, because we pay attention to this, because we're well managed. But anyways, when someone's on the streets and they're like, fuck that, not going to the shelter for whatever reason, the mod pods are a better negotiating tool. Do you know?
So are you in the mod pods, do you notice that there's more women than men? Do you guys...
More men than women, but the women have been increasing.
Okay.
Homeless women have been increasing over the course of time. Also, seniors have been increasing.
What?
Oh, yeah. There's 52% of the participants at the shelter are seniors.
Whoa. So yeah, that's super interesting. What is going on? What's the trend that you're seeing of why people are becoming homeless?
People getting priced out of their benefits. So the cost of living doing this and benefits doing this. The cost of living is increasing, and your benefits are right here. You're always going to be behind.
Yeah. If you're always behind, you can't afford rent, you're fucked.
Yeah.
At that point, you will be homeless at some point, especially if you're old and you don't have a lot of familial connections, you don't have a lot of relationships. It's not good.
And you're on a fixed income. And if your rent raises, what are you going to do? You're going to have to cut something out. And then you do this over the course of time until you cut everything out. So and it's difficult to work with this population because you're like, they're retired, they're seniors. They're not going to go back to work.
Right.
They're not going to, so that's one of our issues, right? Is the senior population increasing, women population increasing. Males have always been.
Yeah, I think it's been like very clear that the male gender has always like been consistent in that. But I feel like lately we have noticed in Reno more women on the streets and more kids.
Well, so kids. So kids should never be on the streets. There's always a community will always find a way for kids. If the kids are on the streets, that's a problem. Big. Like kids shouldn't be on the streets. They'll find a way.
And when I say kids, I'm like talking about teenagers. Like
teenagers. Like, so that's a tough one, right?
Yeah. So I needed to define. I think
Yeah.
It's like you have a 16-year-old probably ran away and is like, no one's going to tell me what to do. I'm out.
And I notice it specifically like getting off of Wells and you turn right and the Denny's is right there.
Yeah.
Every time because I go to my gym is over there. So I always see every time crossing the street, like teenagers.
Oh, yeah.
And they're always coming from like, there must be like a tent or like an encampment right there, but they're always going to Denny's or they're coming back from Denny's and they're like going into the bushes.
Yeah. And then you have that America's Best right there.
Yes. Yeah.
Fosters.
Foster. Yeah.
Behavior. No, that's getting, and that's the transitional age youth, homeless population is a difficult one.
Yeah.
Because it's not, because in some cases, it's not that they don't have a place to go. They just don't want to go there. They won't follow those rules. Some it's otherwise. Some are, where it's really they're running from some sort of abuse, whatever. But it's difficult to find out like which one is which.
Yeah.
There's so that and if you look at why is it males traditionally, you look at like the history of homelessness. In America, I mean, homelessness was forever, right?
Yeah.
The guy doesn't have a cave, right? Years ago.
Yeah.
That guy didn't have a cave. Yeah. So, but like in America, it was always around times of war, right? And so after war, men are going to war, right? Men would be displaced. And so they would be what they call homeward bound. So they call them hobos. It was short for homeward bound. So then they would ride the tracks. And this is where the tracks became synonymous with homelessness. Remember the picture of the guy with a stick and a bag on it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Like the classic American hobo picture.
Yeah.
That's in the Polar Express. Like the guy, he had that stick with like that little thing. I'm watching a lot of Christmas movies lately, so that's like my first thought that came to mind. Anyway,
that's what homelessness was. It was that, and that was more of a situational homelessness, and then around the Civil War, right? People are losing arms, they're losing limbs, and they can't work, and there's no system to help the folks, and so like that's when churches get involved, and then around there's about what is it, LBJ, right? It was like they started putting this welfare thing into place, and then they started coming up with these shelters, because shelters were just a community thing, right? It was volunteers, it was a church, right? Usually,
right.
And all the person needed was respite, recovery, and re-entry, right? So you just need a free bed where you can sleep, get your shit back together, get your head back, and then go to work, and then save enough money to get your own spot. Well, then you start introducing, so that's mainly men, right? Mm-hmm. Then you start introducing the medicating of America, right? And it started with Thorazine. And Thorazine came out right about the time that they were going to start deinstitutionalizing, right? Shutting down the asylums.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the Thorazine was the answer. It was going to calm all these mentally ill people down, and we can send them back to their homes or their community, right? So there wasn't like a...
Thorazine is not... It's just like a tranquilizer.
Yeah.
That's basically all it does. So it doesn't treat any illness. It just makes you less of a problem for someone else.
Yeah, and that was like the answer. Let's just chill them the fuck out. Like when you go to jail, that's what they give you. Yeah, anybody who's ever been a convict has done the Thorazine shuffle at one time.
It's like you just need to relax. All right,
shut your mouth. Fair enough. Can I have more? Can I have another, please? Right? Like, where's the Thorazine?
I have another.
Have another one of your tranquilizers. But and then that happened, and then Prozac comes out, right? And all these things. I think think within 10 years of Thorazine being released, there's about 5 million Americans that had a prescription, right? Now it's the thing. And then Prozac and all the things, and there's a book called The Anatomy of an Epidemic that walks us through the medicating of America. So we started solving problems with medicating folks. And then you have up until the 80s, you didn't hear anything about mental illness and homeless. You didn't hear it in the same sentence, right?
And then it was Reagan, right? The deinstitutionalized.
It was everybody.
Yeah.
I know, like, because you want to get
not a single person point, but it's during that era.
We all agreed that, and if you listen to, and I listened to it again, Kennedy's speech on healthcare, because he was motivated by Rosemary, his sister that had the lobotomy, that it made her even sicker. She couldn't walk. She was, anyways. So in that speech, it sounds so good. Sounds great. It's interesting. Is like the start of every magic bullet feels good. I watched, the war on drugs, right? The deinstitutionalizing of America, even the decriminalization of drugs in certain places. When you hear it, you're like, man, that sounds great. But in action, right?
Then humans get involved, and
then we get involved. Yeah, and we turn it into some other shit, and it got like. But if you listen to Kennedy in 1963, he mentioned and towards this Thorazine that's really going to help, and we're going to send people back. And you're like, yeah. And then around 1980, when Reagan, because Reagan was more about like not getting the government involved and stuff, and he was like
cutting a lot of funding to a lot of different programs. Yeah,
and it's weird. It's like when the pendulum swings,
goes hard,
bro. Yeah. And so it went so far that that you had an idea without the funding, because Kennedy was assassinated 3 months after the speech that got the act pushed through, the Healthcare Act, and after that, then didn't receive the funding. So having an idea without properly funding it is a problem.
Yeah, it goes sideways.
Oh, dude. And so you have all these magic bullets that didn't correctly go through. So war on drugs, decriminalizing drugs, war on drugs put more people in prisons, closing down of the asylums put people in prisons, hospitals, and streets. And then the decriminalizing drugs kept people. Like, you'll see what happened in Portland, you'll see what happened in Seattle, Vancouver, Canada, where harm reduction has gone so far that we're keeping people sick, and we're not, and there's this thing about being compassionate, right? Like, be compassionate, to these folks. We're like, well, you have to redefine compassion, right? Because watching somebody kill themselves with
that's
dope,
not compassion, that's being complicit.
Your street, yes, dude. Thank you. Like, you see how excited I got? I'm like, yes,
no, I understand. It's going on behind the scenes for me, so I get it.
There's complicit. Yeah. And anyway, so that's our problem now. So we don't have like a homeless problem. We have a healthcare problem. We have a welfare system problem. We have a behavioral health problem. We have not a drug problem, because drugs do their job.
Yeah.
We have an addiction problem.
Yeah.
Right? We need to pay attention to addiction. Like, drugs are doing exactly what they're supposed to do. So don't have a war on drugs.
Yeah.
Right? Because now you're going to make drugs more valuable.
Well, it's also, that's the boogeyman. That's like the war on terror. It's not something that you can ever beat.
Yeah.
So you can keep throwing money at it. You could keep giving people jobs for it. It's not going to fix it.
Yeah. And with the more you try to eliminate something, the more value it increases in value.
Totally.
So you can't do that. And so we've gotten real far as homelessness is concerned. Now it's connected to all these things. We have folks that if they had proper health care, they wouldn't be homeless. Right? They'd be able to function a little better. They just need to get in the right spot. You have folks that if they got off drugs, right, they would be in a better place. But you'll never, and then you have mental illness, right? But you'll never identify what a person's mental illness is if they're actively using meth.
Right.
So we have to address the meth problem. Once we get that, then we can identify the mental illness problem. Now we got to get into the stabilization problem. Like, how can we get you stable? And so there's all these things that when people are like, homelessness could be solved with housing.
I hear that and I hate it because it's...
Say it one more fucking time, right? Like,
so fucking gross.
Yeah.
It's dehumanizing.
Dude.
It doesn't solve the problem.
Brother, and man, I'm telling, that's one of the biggest struggles that we have in this industry is where folks are wanting to, thinking it's that simple. And it's not
That's the
simple.
silver bullet idea. It doesn't work that way.
Yep. And I agree 100%. Because what we do too, and what you've seen over time, one of the things that happens when we take somebody from the streets, there's a few things, right? I can look at your tent and tell you what your apartment's going to look like, right? And then there's this cultural shift that needs to take place. Like in order to survive on the streets well, you have to be conflict. Your conflict resolution has to be these. If you talk really well in the streets, you're a fucking mark and you'll get fucking beat up and rolled.
Jacked pretty
Yeah, it's not going to happen, dude. You can't be a good negotiator on the streets. Well, I guess you can, but it won't prevent you from getting rolled, right? You got to have these, and someone has to know that they'll have to work to get the shit, right? And so if you have survived with these, and you're fucking loudmouth, right? The whole time on the streets, if we take you from a condition of being unhoused into an apartment, how do you resolve conflict in that apartment?
Or at work, you go work at a tire shop, and your job is an asshole. You're like, let's handle this right here.
Motherfucker, you disrespect me, man. You know?
Right. Yeah.
You're not allowed to do that there, bro. You're not allowed to. And so if we don't teach them that, and that's how they survived, right? So just imagine you're hanging off a cliff on a rope, and this rope has worked for you for so long, and there's lava. There's lava down there. You're going to fucking die, man, if you let go of that rope, and then somebody like throws another rope over and is like, hey, grab the rope, man. Fuck you, bro.
Yeah.
You know,
pretty good.
This is working for me. I'm fine. You know, and so like changing your survival mechanisms takes time and it takes energy and effort. It takes other people too.
Yeah.
Right? It's people help people, not things. You can throw up a building, put chairs in it and offices in it, but it means dick unless you have the right people and the right programming. You know? And so that magic bullet I'm not very fond of.
Well, you hear it a lot because you hear about like, we don't have a homeless problem, we have a housing crisis, or we have mental illness crisis. They just keep slapping crisis on whatever it is. When it's multiple angles, it's a lot of shit going on at once. It needs to be addressed that way instead of like, oh, here's a bunch of houses. All right, you're good. You're not homeless anymore. Like,
good. Now he has a home. Well, that's actually solving the homeless optics problem too. As long as we can get them out, as long as we're not seeing them, we solve the problem. Yeah. Well, no, that's like, dude, I feel, you know, it's like that whole boat rowing gig where we're all rowing. And when you have somebody that's rowing in the wrong direction, right? Like, fuck, it's always Carl, right?
And now the boat's going like
now
in a
we're
circle.
Like, Carl, you're fucking this up for the rest of us, Carl. You just
Carl
moves in the wrong direction. He's got to stop. We have to work on Carl. We can't throw him overboard. You don't get to do that. Right. We wanted to do that, right? We throw them in a prison or let them die. We throw them overboard. You know, like you're not allowed to do that because Carl could potentially be a big fucking deal. If Carl gets worked on. Remember baby Jessica?
No. So, baby Jessica.
Baby Jessica, you know, okay, how old are you?
I'm 28.
28, you already told me that.
Yeah, 28.
Okay, so back in the 80s, right, this 80s, 90s, there was this baby Jessica fell in a well, right? This baby falls in a well. I want you to Google it, right? This baby falls in a well, but she's still alive. And the whole community shuts down. It made national news. I can't remember where it was, but it was in America, right? Baby Jessica falls in a well, and the whole city, the whole country, right, is at the edge of their seats watching this national news, like what's going to happen with baby Jessica, and the city, you got firemen throwing shit down. They're digging trenches from here. They've got flashlights, and there's cameras everywhere. They're sending baby Jessica down food, and this baby's lodged in this fucking well, and they're trying to get this baby out. Everybody's watching, and it's and it was interesting, right? They eventually ended up getting her out. But why did everybody give such a fuck about this one baby that fell down the well, right?
There's human potential.
The baby never lifted a fat finger to help anybody, doesn't have influence or money, but like what baby Jessica could be, right? And there's innocence involved, right? But there's like that, like she carried value, like intrinsic value without even doing anything. So I worry, like, when we put people places without proper support or proper help or proper training and it is training, right? You're parenting folks. You're training them to be functional adults again. If we put somebody somewhere without that, then you might lose that person because you don't want to see them, because it's uncomfortable for you seeing them. I have friends, like older friends that when they see somebody homeless on the streets and it really disturbs them, they'll call me and be like, there is a naked man on the sidewalk right now. What are we going to do about this? I'm like, stop.
His dick is bigger than mine.
It's huger than mine, which really...
And it's out for everyone to see now. Everyone knows.
My wife was in the car and I'm self-conscious.
I know. I can't even go home now. He ruined my...
You ruined Christmas.
God. Carl ruined Christmas. Again. Yeah. God, that's terrible. Oh my God. But like they call you, they'll call me like complain about this problem. And like, that's interesting is like now it's a problem when it makes you uncomfortable.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. This is a us thing, and now it's an everybody thing, and now we're just worried about it when it makes us uncomfortable, when it bleeds into our neighborhoods, when it bleeds into our neighborhoods, we're not thinking about bigger picture solutions. We're like, get them the fuck out.
Right.
And like, so I disagree with that. I think like I'll see folks like on the streets, and we've seen it before, right? We have a unique opportunity to watch a human when you work in this, right? And this is the hill I've chosen to die on, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to be in this for a minute. When you work in this, you have a unique opportunity to watch humans deteriorate, right? You can see somebody that comes in new into homelessness, but we, for whatever reason, can't quite figure it out, and you're doing the best that you can, and there's never enough, and you can watch a person die right in front of you, over the course of time. But the great thing is that you can watch a person grow. Mm-hmm. And who knows what it is. You've seen them die over the course of years. You've watched them come and go and try and fail and try and fail and try and fail and all the things. And then one day something happens, and who knows what it is. It's miraculous, right? Mm-hmm. Miraculous with some stuff. It's not just hopefully a miracle happens. Yeah. And you're like, well, hopefully a miracle happens, Bob. It's a miracle with work. It's a working miracle, right? Where you're trying and trying and trying and working and working and working and working and working. And then one day they fucking get it. And then one day you watch a human like, clicks. Oh God, it's so great. Like I have a program where I get to see guys that are in treatment that I've seen on the streets, and they're not ready yet. Not ready. And then one day you don't see them on the streets anymore, and then they'll drop off these guys at the gym that I train them at, and they're dudes from the streets, and they're glowing, their faces back, they're showing me pictures of their kids, like that's it, right? So I know that can happen. You remember Sally Jesse Raphael? Oh God, I'm so old.
You're just naming all these, Jessica, Sally, Raphael.
So Sally Jesse Raphael was, God, I just dated. I didn't really, okay, I'm that old. All right, so.
It's okay. We're also like not super.
Uninformed?
Maybe I'm a little like uninformed.
No, look it up. Look up baby Jessica. Look up Sally Jesse Raphael, Ricky Lake.
Yes.
So she was like around Ricky Lake, Donahue, all these things. And she went for like, and they all did it where they did these makeovers.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Like I always think about like these makeovers when I like, look at someone on the streets. I look at like, man, if you tighten this dude up a little bit, if he was this and that, and you can, and you see it happen in real life. Mm-hmm. But in order to get there, if you want to be good, like you have to believe that somebody can do it. And you have to see something in there. Usually we judge people by all the terrible shit they do. Right? Mm-hmm. Like this guy, this, and this. But like if you focus on like the good things that they can do, because in order to survive homeless, you got to have a certain fucking skill set, dude.
Yeah.
You got to be really fucking good at certain things. And so and everybody has that. So that's why, like I said, I don't believe in like the magic bullet shit. I don't believe in trying to solve a problem too fast. We have to have a plan that's a 40-year plan. Yeah, I don't want to go.
I would love. I would love to get into.
I got some answers.
Okay.
I would love to get into also like the solutions, because I think it's very clear that we have the problem. It's multiple problems. It's not just homelessness. It's a bunch of contributing factors that are going into homelessness: mental illness, addiction, even family trauma, abuse that's happening, in the homes with kids. But I think that it's important for people to recognize like where they can help, because I think it can feel like so daunting. It's such a big problem. It's happening not just in our city, but other cities as well. San Francisco, I grew up in the Bay Area, and it has completely transformed for the worse. And it's just amazing to see how like the lack of government or the lack of governing that's really happening there with the homelessness. It seems like they're aiding the homelessness to be homeless, and it's just causing unsafe environments for, you know, people who are not choosing to be homeless, who are also trying to just survive day to day. But it's also, I think, just creating more addiction. It's creating just not a safe city, a city that you're not proud to be in. Yeah. So I just want to hear from you, like, what is helpful help that people can do for the homeless community here? And what is not helpful? Like, what are the solutions that are in our hands?
What is not helpful? Well, so let's look at the what I think the solution is, and I could be wrong. Mm-hmm. Who knows? But this is what I believe by sleeping, and bleeding this and seeing it. You'll get so there's what's the solution, and what can people do, and what causes problems, right? So the solution is, in order to work with folks, we need to have let's first start with prevention. Right? How do you stop people from being homeless, right? And even if right now we get really good at outreach, and we get really good at sheltering, and we get really good at housing people, right? In order for us to be good at being homeless service providers, we're moving somebody from a condition of homelessness into a condition of extreme poverty, right? Mm-hmm. So they're going into poverty. And this is your best case scenario. This isn't anybody that's mentally ill or addicted to drugs or anything like this. This is somebody that's still willing and able and capable of working. You move them into a condition where they're in extreme poverty, and then you have most folks will be on benefits, right? Because they make barely a living wage. So you'll have subsidies for rent. You'll have subsidies for food. You'll have your food stamps. You'll have certain benefits, right? That make your income from here to here. Now let's say that this individual gets sick, misses some days of work. Let's say they have a flat tire. They're on a fixed income.
Yeah,
right?
They don't have the money to swap a tire.
You're about a check or two away from being homeless again, right? So you have that, and then you look at it like, I 80%. Probably now more than that, of my employees came from these streets, right? Or were addicted or in recovery, have been homeless before, or fresh out of prison, right? And we work with our own.
Yeah.
And like, let's say one of my guys are doing really good, but he's receiving these subsidies. Once I give him a raise, if I have somebody that's really good and I give him a raise, that takes them out of that benefits bracket. And now they're worth less than they were before, right? And now they can barely cover their wages. So they're not incentivized to get a better pay. They're not incentivized to get a better job, because once they reach that, they don't get the benefits that they had before. And so there's this system that's, I don't really think that people design a system to hurt people, but it's kind of, that doesn't help.
Incentivizing you to go
not
for
at
it,
all, right?
It's going to hurt you in the process.
Well, yeah. Like I managed to get out, but it was, but it took a minute, right? And it took a minute of being broke but having a certain mindset, being a certain kind of motivation. So there's the welfare there needs to be welfare reform, right? People need to receive certain benefits as long as we're performing certain ways, and when we get to who knows what it is, I can't really speak on that right now if I have ideas, but so that's why if you have a lake and there's two rivers feeding it and one river out, right? So there's one way out of homelessness, but there's new homelessness and recidivism, right? Mm-hmm. So there's two. So if you have homelessness will always grow. So how do we prevent people from doing that? That's diversion, helping them with rent, helping this, helping that, working on welfare reform. I know it sounds like it's not simple. It's years from now.
Right.
So there's that. And then there's how do we, then we have to break up the different types of homelessness, right? You have people that are willing and able. Those are easy to work with. Willing but unable. Mental health, physical disorders. That's different. The senior problem, right? The boomer issue. So should we have homeless respite? Should we have homeless care homes, nursing homes? Should we, and then you look into, some folks just need to get off drugs. So how do you get somebody to really focus on their addiction How do you get somebody into recovery to focus on their addiction? Well, that's probably going to be the legal route, right? The judicial route, because in order to support a habit, you don't have any income, you might break some laws, right? If your crimes are drug related, then there should be some, specialty courts. So then there's that. If you have specialty courts, then you have to have a treatment infrastructure that supports that. So there's that. And then you have folks that are severely mentally ill that will never, ever make it on their own. Well, then that's permanent supportive housing. We get them into a place where they're constant oversight, where they're constantly being worked on, where, and it depends on the acuity of the mental illness. But so we need to have our shelters need to turn back into emergency shelters where people aren't living there for 15, 20 years, where when they come in, it's more of a triage center where we're identifying, how did they get here? And it takes a minute, right, to be able to do this. We got to get better at it. There's surveys out there that personality surveys, you can give somebody a survey and you know exactly about that person. We should be able to do the same with homeless folks, anybody that's homeless, to be able to identify why they're here. Because in this industry, right, you'll get folks you're working with a hologram, right? So over the course of time, I've identified that a person that does this, this, and this gets these benefits. This hasn't happened to me, but I want to get those benefits, so I create a story around that, and it's survival mechanism. It's what you do. Like, that shelter only takes abused women. You haven't been in abuse recently, but you want to get into a shelter. So we create holograms of ourselves to be able to receive certain things. And this is common. I mean, there's people that are housed that do this shit. Some guys do it to get girlfriends, right?
That's why.
Just create a hologram.
Right.
About 2 months in, you're like, wait a minute. You're not that guy.
Yeah.
Shit, hold on. But so that's the I believe is the solution, as we get better at knowing who our people are and create programs based on who they are. And I know it sounds simple, but it's just what they would call an ecosystem of tiered mobility, right? So at your mobility, you're working your way up to things, finding what works for you, and instead of failing at something and going straight to the streets, we fell at something and go to a lower program, right? So there needs to be more programs for different specific needs. What helps is helping the agencies. I strongly disagree with helping people directly on the streets, unless you're taking them to an agency. Somebody says they're hungry, take them to St. Vincent's where the food is. Don't just give them. I disagree. I don't think we should support somebody in place.
And why is that?
Well, you look at it like, let's first say, what do you want to do? What's your motivation to give somebody money on the side of the street? Does it feel good, or are you trying to get them off the streets? If you're trying to get them off the streets, your $5 isn't going to do it, dude.
Yeah.
And is it about hungry? Well, then if it's about hungry, then you'll have to do it again tomorrow, right? Or you'll have to count on the guy behind you to do it. So it's a pretty loose goal, and I feel like that it's not about that person, it's about you. I don't give a shit what anyone, you always get attacked for that, right? Like, what, you don't want me to help? What, the guy wants help right now. Yeah, but he was there yesterday too. Yeah, and he'll be there tomorrow. And what you're also doing is you're preventing them from actually coming to the services
that are going to actually help them get them.
That will actually help them, right? So why do people stand on the corner with a sign? Because it works.
Yeah.
Why does it work? Because of you.
Right.
Like, I'm not like pointing fingers and saying it's bad, but this isn't the days like when it's the Good Samaritan on the side of the road, right? Because the Good Samaritan on the side of the road, they didn't just hand him some shit. They picked him up and they took him somewhere.
Yeah.
And they worked with him until he was right. Unless you're willing to do that, I don't know if it's a great plan. I don't think so. And and people, it's interesting is people don't want to change how they help. Right? The problem, and if you look at that, is that like in order for somebody that's in a condition of homelessness to get to a condition of not being homeless, they will have to change.
Yeah.
So if you're not willing to change, right, you're not modeling good behavior. Like,
right.
So if you really want to solve the problem, be willing to change. Help the agency. Help someone that's already doing it. Like that's it. And also like we have like there's groups like that go out and serve food on the streets. I disagree with that too. Strongly. I don't like, there's many problems as to, yeah.
Sorry, is it because you're wanting the homeless population to come to you guys or come to the agencies and to rely on you guys rather than relying on just like the civilians?
There's
Like what is
infrastructure built out?
Yeah.
That's what I'm
because I think, but there's another question too of like, well, how many? Do you know the percentage of the population that wants to be homeless in Reno? Like, have you
Wants
asked?
to?
Yes, that like where you've asked them.
I don't think I've yet to meet anybody that wants to. We know there are people that are homeless that are like separatists that are kind of living the lifestyle, like fuck the system kind of people. That's a small percentage. I haven't.
So that's not a large percentage because I feel like,
I haven't met anybody that's like, man, I'm fucking living the dream, man. You know?
Yeah.
Even though, like, I haven't met anybody like that. I've met guys that are like, fuck your system, man, that are like, that don't want to be in the system, that don't want to be connected to any networks, that are like, this is the lifestyle. I've met them, but they, over the course of time, transition anyways to a help me place. I don't think so.
The only reason I ask is because I feel like, and maybe it's just a different type of population in San Francisco, but I feel like that is the sentiment that you get from there because there's so many resources that help aid them to still be homeless.
So San Francisco is different. I've been to the Tenderloin multiple times. I've sat in Market Square. I've got videos of the shit with the guys that the Haitians or the there's a group out there. I can't remember. It's a specific type of group from the south of the border. It's that Hondurans. Yeah. So so there's like guys in this group, and I'm not like picking on all Hondurans. I just know that like when I went out there, that was what I got it on video. The guy was like, the Hondurans here, and he's like pointing them out. I'm like, don't fucking don't point out. Don't point out. Like, keep your fingers down, sir. Right. Get me murdered.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. Like, I just wanted some drugs. And that's it.
Right.
I'm just trying to fuck my life up here doing interviews. But like, I've been in that circle, and where those dudes are like, they're just they steal from the store, they bring it back over here, they lay it out in front of them. People are nodding out everywhere.
Yeah, they have a full marketplace going.
Open, yeah. And but that's a policy thing too, though, is because they're giving the folks money, cash every month.
Right.
They're giving them cash every month in addition to their food stamps. So they're incentivizing
more homelessness. Yeah. I think that's where
we don't have those policies here
in Reno.
Right? No, we do not.
We can't afford to either.
No. Thank you.
We don't have the actual infrastructure. We don't have the money.
Yeah, I think, and that's where I think every city is different a little bit with their homeless population. I'm like scarred by San Francisco. It is just, I've seen it get so much worse to where it is now from what it used to be. It used to be, I mean, I'm not going to say fully safe because it's still a city. It still had crime. It still had homelessness. But I mean, you really can't go anywhere now besides maybe the marina. I mean, even the marina is terrible. Like without someone who is shitting in the middle of the street.
If you have an app to identify shits in your city, have you seen that?
Yeah.
The poop app? Like they have a poop app.
And it's with brown dots.
Yeah.
And there will be higher clusters of like.
See, that's what I'm saying.
I went through taking pictures when I was there of the poop. Some people were kind enough to wipe. I thought that was great. I was like, sweet. I mean, it was I was like, wow, at least they're wiping, But,
oh my gosh, no, it's horrible though.
Yeah, it was all over there. But that's a policy thing. We don't have that here. They don't get like, nobody's getting a check because they're unhoused, and so and this is where the argument is, right? The argument is that like, because in order for somebody to want to be there, it has to be more comfortable here than it is here. So that like the pain here has to be more than the pain of exiting. And so and there has to be suffering. Yes. Mm-hmm. And so if you're not suffering here,
right.
So who's the one that applies the suffering, right? How do you start? And that's what it has to be, right? And to a certain degree, I'm not saying that we have to make somebody suffer, but it can't be easier to do this than it is to do this.
Yeah, there has to be some kind of driving factor.
There has to be a nudge. There has to be something, and you can do it with compassion too. I do it with my kids, right? When it comes to doing dishes or doing chores, or when mistakes are made, right? Mm-hmm. This is parenting, right? On another level. So like I think that's where we went wrong. Is we're like, well, they're humans. If somebody says they're fucking humans one more time, Like, we can all agree they're humans. Let's stop there. Don't say fucking humane to me. Like, well, there was this thing about sweeping the camps. Don't sweep camps. Don't sweep camps. Well, okay, right? And why not? Why don't you want to sweep camps? One reason, it's a valid reason, is that if you're working with somebody in the camp, when you sweep, when the camp is swept, they're displaced. And say I had an appointment with this guy and the camp was swept and we don't know where he went. That's a reason. That's valid. But we're in a small enough town and we have enough outreach now to where we know where they go. We can find anybody.
Wow.
Well, the street is small enough here. And
there's a finite amount of space.
Well, there's only a few places you can go.
Yeah.
There's only a few, right? There's about 7 spots, and we know where they are. We've been working in this long enough in the streets. You have enough boots on the ground. You can find somebody and you know their habits, especially because we've been down there.
Yeah.
We're in the streets with them. We know who they are. We know their habits. So that kind of like, that reason is like, well, no, because we can find them. So that doesn't really give you a reason to keep a camp. And then you have to look at the culture in a camp, right? So when is a camp a problem? One tent?
Unsafety? Like.
So that's where I was going, right?
Yeah.
So when is a camp a problem? Is it a problem when there's 1 tent? 2 tents, 3 tents, 4 tents? Because at a certain number, it's going to grow. It's going to grow to a certain number where there's going to need to be a leader.
Right, and it becomes almost like a
warlords.
lawless, like a lawless community in a way.
And the leaders usually aren't like the nicest folks, right? They're usually, if you ask somebody on the streets, when the last time they got abused, beaten, assaulted, raped, robbed, it was from someone in a camp, or it was another homeless person, right? So, and there's this, I remember asking this advocate, when they were like, we don't sweep the camps because of this. And I'm like, because it's inhumane. I'm like, well, then you'll have to balance out what humane are you, what humane are you okay with? What are you comfortable with? Are you, because you just don't want to displace somebody because that's inhumane. But then you'll have to take displacement against rape, displacement against play to stay. Because I'm sure you're an advocate for women, yeah? Would you also, in the camp, there's a culture of play to stay where the women don't hold the tents. In order to stay in a tent, most of them have to play to stay, exchange sexual favors, right? And so it's survival sex. Are you okay with that, right? Because if you're okay with that, then you might as well, then leave the camps. But if you're not okay with that, then you'll have to accept this inhumanity.
Displacement, yeah.
It's one for the other,
right?
Right? So I believe this inhumanity far outweighs the displacement inhumanity. And also, when people are moved, when you leave a person in one place for too long, I can show you pictures of camps where people that are giving, that are helping. When you help somebody, you ask them, "What can I do to help you?" Well, I don't help you do what, right? So there's a woman that had dressers and tarps and tents and all the things, and they're asking for things that are going to help them stay put, right? And so what are you trying to help somebody do? There's 3 impacts when you help, right? There's micro, meso, and macro. Micro is the individual, meso is the group, macro is the community. And when you help people, think about all of them. Don't just help the individual. How can you help the individual at the same time helping the community? So if it's a hungry issue, it's a food insecurities issue, it's bigger than just giving them the food. Show them where the food is. Yeah. Now you've helped the group and the community, right? So you can't think micro levels when it comes to helping. And that's what I struggle with a lot of these advocacy groups.
Yeah.
They're thinking micro levels, and a lot of them are really vocal about how to solve homeless problems. And that's like taking advice from someone who is only putting gas in a car on how to rebuild your engine.
Right.
That's a great metaphor. I like that.
I've got hours.
Right. So I guess kind of going back to what can, I guess, the normal person do? And you said going straight to the agency to help. What does that look like? Like when I go to you guys, is it volunteering my time? Is it donations? What do you guys need in order to keep doing what you guys are doing?
So a lot of and it depends on what we're doing. So in the outreach, we do a lot of cleanups, right? So we have access. So ask if you can volunteer to go do a cleanup. At the resource center, we have folks coming in for showers and for doing laundry. They're accessing, welfare resources there. Social Security will come in, SNAP cards, food stamps, things like this are coming in. They're accessing that there. And there we'll often need people to come volunteer and help us monitor the showers, clean the showers, because after everybody gets out, you clean the showers, right? And with laundry, we just stay on top of the laundry, keeping folks momentum and moving, because you only have 2 washers and dryers there, so we got to keep people moving. And then when it comes to warming center, and resource, is we often when I say the Karma Box project, this is what we do specifically, right? Safe Camp, outreach, warming center, and resource center. We have people that have accidents a lot, right? They can't perform their ADLs that come through there, and we will have to change them. And you can't take their clothes that are soiled and wash them, because it messes the washers up, clogs the filters. Everybody else's clothes after that will smell. And so we have to throw those clothes away. We're finding that that getting donations of clothes are great, but then now you have to size a person. People are different sizes. So it makes more sense for us to just get donations of sweatpants, right? What a sweatpants.
Got the drawstrings. They fit
drawstrings. Yeah. So that's functional for that place. Yeah. Now in the shelter, it's donating new clothes. Right? There has to be a new clothes donation. And there also has to be somewhere that has gently used clothes. And then so every place has a different purpose. If you're going to donate clothes, don't donate it to some places that's going to sell it and make a profit off it.
Yeah.
Don't. I think it's a bad idea. I'm not going to say any names, but you know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, don't donate it there. Donate it to places that are using this as a vehicle to employ their people that are in treatment, to employ homeless folks that are going to use this money to go back into the program and help folks. So it would be places like the Gospel Mission, Good Shepherd's Closet, like places like that. The Gospel Mission and the Good Shepherd, like, donate to them. Yeah. Because they give their stuff away for free. They give people a shopping experience. It's always like this is what you want to donate to. We give things to places that I don't think
people try and do things out of the goodwill of their heart, but we won't name any names.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and it's crazy how priced the things are when you go there. Yeah. It's unreasonable.
Yeah. It's really not targeting anybody who's homeless.
It's not to help us. No. Yeah, not at all.
So you listed a couple different programs and resources. What's missing in the community? What would help move the needle or make an impact, do you think?
Definitely a hospice, homeless hospice. Then a place for and that's coming on. Actually, Good Shepherd's working on a program like that. Then there's homeless nursing homes, right? We need to get people back to health. So medical homeless places where somebody, it's like when you have an open wound, it is difficult to heal up when you're living on the streets, dude.
Yeah, how do you knock those septic?
Dude, it happens all the time. You'll see people that have their limbs missing and all that.
Oh my gosh.
There's so many stories. And so it's difficult to recover right on the street. So there needs to be medical homes. There needs to be more medical homes. There needs to be a hospice for the homeless, and then homeless nursing home. And then we need then that's for our seniors. Then we need regular housing, supportive housing for senior folks that are priced out, that's within range of what they're making, that won't ever increase for them. Do you know? And that's where it gets weird, right? You keep telling somebody, how do you get developers to buy in to giving shit away?
There's got to be some kind of government subsidy, because otherwise they won't be financially incentivized.
Yeah, it has to be. One guy put it really well. There has to be a marriage of capitalism and socialism when it comes to housing this particular group, because we can build affordable housing, but affordable for who?
Right.
Yeah. And so that's the issue too. I have a friend that's an expert at this. I can't speak too much on it, but because she gets into acronyms and shit that I don't understand.
Start glazing over.
I know. I nod my head. I'm like, yeah, I agree. Yes,
Whatever that
yes.
3-letter acronym is, yes.
Yeah, right. You start using that language, I might be agreeing to some weird shit.
Yeah.
Yes, all the way.
Agree.
Fair enough. But that was more programs like that and more actual detox with tiered out transitional houses. Mm-hmm. More sober living, more pre-employment housing. It's difficult to get somebody because of the cultural shifts. It's difficult to get somebody that hasn't worked in 10 years to keep a job, right? It's not what you get, it's what you keep, right? So you can get all the shit in the world, you can get a job, but you'll fucking lose it again if you don't learn, right? These basic, right? There's 5 things that need to be worked on for sure that we forgot. And I've watched this, right? And I've one thing,
Right.
2 things, 3 things. Remember the count? 1, 2, 3. No, I counted all of the things, and it's work ethic, work etiquette, time management skills, communication and conflict resolution. And it doesn't have anything to do with like this person's ability to show up, right? Like, well, kind of, right? When you get to time management, but it's all the things, and maybe it's more of one or more of the other, but like we try and we fail and we try and we fail and we try and we fail, and we're getting really good at learned hopelessness, where we're putting people in places that they're not quite ready for yet.
Yeah.
And we have to like accept like how much of that is us and how much is them.
Right.
Do you know? Because we're like, that motherfucker's lazy. Maybe they just don't have a plan, right?
Yeah, there's setting expectations, and then there's also setting people up for failure.
Yep. And when you get into complex change, there's an answer for every behavior, right? And so like you have to start paying attention to that. And I think that's why I said pre-employment housing. I'm not talking about workforce housing. Workforce is people that know how to work and are good about and are good at it. And not saying these people can't be good at it. Yeah. It's just we have to get into a place where there's programs like this in the like if you could take, Bybee Lakes from Portland, because Portland has some badass programs, but the rest of the city sucks so bad that you don't even notice the badass programs. Bybee Lakes, awesome program. Guy named Alan Evans put this thing together where it's a tiered system, where they nudge you into the next phase and the next tier. And then
which is so good. I feel like you definitely need that. You need goals to reach for. You need to know, one, come to awareness of where you're at, and then be able to like have realistic goals, not have like these lofty goals that are unreachable, but just like, what is the next 3 steps that I need to take to get to this next phase? And then the next 3, because I think just achieving goals in general, I don't think everyone is like perfect at it. And especially when you're in a place of survival, it's like you don't even think 5 steps ahead. You think right now, like you're thinking in the present constantly rather than thinking 5 or 10 steps ahead of where you need to be. No, dude, and then making decisions based off of that.
Yeah. And that's it. Right. And like, it's interesting. I'll speak to groups and I'll be like, all right, who here has ever tried to diet? Everybody raise their hands.
Right.
Like, how did you do?
Are you still doing it?
Yeah. And most people sucked at it, and that's just fucking broccoli. And we're trying to like get people to change their
lifestyle,
whole lives, how they think about themselves, how they view the world, because you don't get to just do these things without changing how you see the world, how you interact with the world, how the world interacts with you, how you feel about yourself, right? You don't get to do any of this complex change without these things. And we're like, stick them in a house, put them, and it doesn't fucking work like that. So we need more programs that are tailored to individuals, right? So you have Bybee Lakes in Portland, you have the Other Side Academy in Salt Lake. Guy named Dave DeRozier, like he's a graduate of, I can't remember the program, I'll remember it in a second, but he's a graduate of a really popular program in San Francisco that like would take folks in and straight from prison and make them workers of a 5-star restaurant, but create like incredible workers. But they're working a program. It's a rigid program.
Yeah.
They don't fuck around in there, And it's a gift to be there, right? So it's how the person also sees the program. We created a program in Salt Lake City called the Other Side Academy, where there's no therapists, there's no doctors. It's just a therapeutic community where there's brothers that have come before you helping you tear your way up, right? Yeah. And you graduate from phase to phase. It's a free program. When you first get there, there's like a blackout period, right, where you're just learning how the community works. Then from that blackout period, you get into a place where you can get a job, and the jobs are micro, like little micro jobs. What are they called? They're called, they're little micro, it's like they have their little businesses, these micro businesses that are created by the Other Side Academy. So they have a moving company, they have a donut shop, they have a thrift store, they have this, they have that.
That's badass.
Oh, dude, it's one of the greatest programs I've ever seen. And it's, you know, and you have to have those people. You have to have people like Dave and Alan, right, to run these things, to be a driving force, and they eat, sleep, and bleed it, right?
Wow.
And so, and this
program,
and it's not just fix them right now. People are like, how long will it take? 6 months to fix this fix Carl? How long will it take to fix Carl? I'm like, well, I don't know how long did it take Carl to get there? A lifetime.
Right.
So you don't get to fucking do shit in like 9 months or pick a number and be like, that looks like a 90-day guy.
Right.
It's sure 90 days are going to help, but help them get where, and we don't know yet, you know, and you have to know folks. And so that program is a years long, but not in one state. You're constantly moving and you're tearing up, and then you have your own apartment here that's on their property, and then they phase out, and then they have a program where they match whatever you save. So if you save 10,000 over the course of a year or 2 years, you leave with 20,000.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Wow, that's amazing.
Talk about incentives. So we have these things, and not everybody's going to get it the first time. People are like, what does the recidivism look like? Well, I kind of get it, but like when you're working this, like I said, it's a miraculous thing, and so you work as hard as you can, and when like if you're like babies, right? No baby like comes out and it's like fucking walking around. Right? Like,
already angry at the world.
Yeah.
I know. Like fucking this little athlete jumping hurdles.
Right.
You don't like no baby does that. It takes a minute. Even when they start walking, it's this progression, right? My son learned to walk on the coffee table. So for 6 months he walked sideways.
Oh my God.
Everywhere. It was just like sideways walk, you know? But that's like, I know that's a testament to conditioning, right?
Yeah.
Like, teach you to walk sideways. But like, so it's like teaching a baby how to walk. Like we're going to fall, and we're working with humans, right? So we don't get to just be like, fucking get it, right? So how much is us and how much is them?
Yeah.
And I know that's a long way to answer what programs.
No, it's very helpful. I think for people, I mean, I really don't know much or didn't know much before you started sharing everything. So it's very helpful for you to go into detail about it because it's interesting too. I feel like for someone who feels like this is a very big issue, and you can see that it's a very big issue from afar, it feels like, well, what can I really do? How can I help? Because I also agree with you that it almost feels wrong to keep giving them food. When I see that person, I'm like, I see him again and again and again on the same street corner, you know, getting the same food. And I'm like, he's not really helping himself. So it's like, you feel like, I want to make an actual change. What is that change I can make? And so I think it's helping you guys and giving you guys, you know, the donations or time that will really, because you guys are the experts. I think that's the thing a lot of people forget is like they want to help, but they don't have the knowledge to actually help someone get from A to B. Yeah. But you guys do. This is what you guys specialize in. This is your life.
Yeah. And that's like when you know, we get, you know, you get attacked or whatever for what you're doing, like, because we do get, you know, we get attacked all the time. Cities do, counties do, agencies do, by people that think you're doing it wrong.
Right.
Right. Well, if you think we're doing it wrong, then you help this person.
Right.
Yeah.
Grab somebody and walk them through the whole way. And don't ask us for any help.
Yeah.
You know, you don't get to like do this, right?
You can't finger point and then be like bitching about it and do nothing either.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest issues we have is misinformation.
Right.
People that are mad at a system, mad at something, mad at the city, just mad. You know,
just
like,
angry.
And dude, I'm fucking telling you, like, I believe this is that you don't like. No city's perfect.
Yeah.
No program's perfect. No person is perfect. But if you live in a city, you better fucking love that city, right? If you live in a community, you better love that community. And even if like there's shit wrong with it, like I love my kids, they're not perfect. Like you have to like believe in your city. You have to. I know I'm not like. You know, I don't want to sound like a weirdo or anything, but like it's like it's okay to disagree with your city. Like, I think that was a terrible idea, But like, if you want to help a city grow, like you have to believe in the city and like do what it takes. Like most people that live in a city have no idea how a fucking city works. Have no idea. And then the people who, right. And I'm just learning this, dude. And then the people that like, that do go, right, and think that like, then there's people that are like halfway engaged where they'll go to city council and yell. And all this council members, they'll go to commission and they'll point their fingers and be like, you guys are communists or whatever the fuck it is, fascists or whatever. Like they'll go and they'll yell, but not really have a viable solution, right? And you can pick apart, like I've spent a lot of time paying attention to like these finger pointers and yellers and like realize that like they're not just like every city you go to has an archetype of a person's, right? They have an archetype of a Grant, right? Alan Evans is an archetype of a Grant. David is Dave Marlin in Vegas. There's different archetypes of people, but then you also have the archetypes of the finger pointers. And I haven't yet seen a value in the finger pointers. Do you know?
Yeah.
Because you're like, this guy's this way, but he does carry value. I haven't seen any value in in finger pointing in any city I've been. I've been to 12.
Because it's only blame.
Yeah.
And there's no solution.
Yeah, you don't get to do that.
No.
Kind of like out of the holes in a boat.
Right, yeah.
All right, you're out of the boat, pal.
Yeah.
I know. Would you see? Like,
There's a problem with this boat, poke. Like,
right here.
Right.
that's all they're doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
With Northern Nevada, I've watched a couple different like mini docs on how hard it is to get paperwork in Nevada. Like when it comes to identification, driver's license, just IDs in general. Is it difficult in Reno as compared to Vegas? Do you know?
I don't think so.
Okay. Because I've heard, specifically we watched one from Channel 5 with Andrew Callahan. And he went through this, like, I think it was a 45-minute, probably compiled over months with one person trying to get his ID.
Well,
He was from the Las Vegas tunnels. And
okay.
he tried to get identification for him, get him back on the street, or like out of the street.
Yeah.
Back on the
That's
street.
really easy. That's what I tell guys I work with. I'm like, listen, the street will always be there. For you.
We have backup options. You don't like them, but they're there.
You should start a nonprofit.
Yeah. It's called Back on the Street.
Get it back,
Sign
boys.
up.
Literally.
But he didn't have like an original birth certificate, didn't have a place of residence, and so it was a couple different steps in the way of getting the identification. Do you run into that with this population?
If it's that far away, right? And it also like depends. Like, was he born in Vegas? Was he born in Nevada? Was he, so we had a case where it took 9 months to get a guy's ID because he couldn't remember where he was born at. He kept telling us New York. It wasn't New York. It was New Jersey. How do we find that out? And he didn't know his name of his parents. And so it just depends, right? And so if somebody's from California, getting them a Nevada ID is hard. And if someone's from Nevada, getting them a California ID is difficult. So it's a case by case issue. And here's what's really important is if you're working with somebody who's still living on the streets, it's going to double or triple the complexities of getting them something, right? Because they may or may not be there that day. You can do all this work and get them you get them their social security card and living on the streets because of the theft, right? They lose it, right? We've gotten somebody IDs 3 times a year because they lose it, right? And so like that also adds to it. So if he's working on somebody that lives in the tunnels, sure, but it will take a little bit longer. Yeah,
especially when washout happens and everything too.
Oh yeah, and you just leave your shit somewhere, or you fucking pass out and they take your shoes and your wallet. So
and
like
it's gone.
Yeah. So I think it's not. It used to be real difficult because of appointments at the DMV. Like some appointments are a month or 2 out, but out here we work with the DMV, and so they give us specific days where we can come right in.
That's badass.
And get folks out. Yeah, so like it's all the agencies leaning in, but I think it's easier in that I didn't see that, but it does make sense, and I don't know the exact path that they took, and if it was just the reporter trying to get him his stuff than an experienced person that knows do you know what I'm saying? If a reporter had to get him an appointment at the DMV, he'd have to wait a couple months.
Like, I know fuck all about it. If I went out to go help somebody, I'm doing nothing. I'm just like, I can schedule an appointment. I'll show up with you. I don't know the paperwork either. We're both fucked.
Yeah, and there's a learning curve, and there's also like we have access to things like the city. The DMV works with the city, right? Offices work with the city or work with outreach companies, and we've done it 100 times. So were schooled in it, right? So if the reporter was doing it, for sure, it would take a little bit longer.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
All right. I had a weird pipe dream of,
Yes.
in the Midwest specifically, there are a bunch of malls from mostly the 80s that were built. And with Amazon and everything else, it's kind of wiped out those brick and mortar businesses.
Yep.
But those physical buildings still exist. Would it not make sense to consolidate a bunch of different services under one roof like that, where you have all these different shops and you can do skills training, you can do documents, you can do medical care for
Makes
large
total
populations of homeless people?
For sure. For sure.
We have the money. This is where it gets political right here. So over the last 4 years, we've seen a huge influx of immigration, mostly illegal, through the southern border, and they've been given housing, they've been given preloaded debit cards, and they've been put up over populations that are currently struggling and just completely glazed over, looked over. Why don't we reallocate that money, in my mind?
I don't know, dude. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like we've prioritized other shit big time. Like this is us. This is our. So we definitely prioritized other shit. We've could have, with money that we've given to other countries, we could have solved housing 6 times over.
Yep.
6 times over, and that's just with housing. Do you know? So I don't know. I don't, and that's, who knows, man. And that's why, like, you don't get to, like, do this shit. Because when I first got into it, I just wanted to help people. I wanted to, like, help people that were like me. And then when you get it and you're like, all right, cool. And then you're working here, then you realize, well, in order to make this work, you have to focus on this. And then in order to make this work, well, you'll have to get your money from this. And then you realize that, like, and in order to get this, you'll have to convince this guy, some fucking dude, who's never touched the streets before, who doesn't know much about homelessness, who up until this point, homelessness is just a fucking nuisance, right? And you got to convince him that this is a good idea, and ask him, like, and when I say that, I'm talking about, like, when you start going up the tiers and who you have to influence and work with to get things to work. It's, of course, top down isn't effective when it comes to helping folks at the bottom. Do you know? And that's a brilliant idea. That is a dream that all of us on the streets, working in the streets, have. There's places like in San Antonio, they have, it's called Haven for Hope. They have a building that's an entire acre. Building that's a whole acre that has every service that you could ever think of inside of it, so that when you, like here in Reno and other places, if you want to get somebody straight-laced, like get them their ID, get them their social security card, get them their birth certificate, all those things, we have to go from one place.
Yeah, you're going to be bouncing all over the city.
Place.
It takes time.
Yeah, at Haven for Hope, one building, one day, you have all your appointments, you know? And so we have to be more efficient. And actually, even if you took that mall and put some permanent supportive housing in it or this and that.
Exactly, because it's so large, you have all that space.
Yeah.
Like JCPenney, it's 2 tiers. You have men's and women's tiers. You could do a lot with it. It
makes sense to you and me and all of us working down here, but somebody's losing money somewhere, do you know?
Yeah.
And that's what we were saying. There has to be a merger of, merger in capitalism. We're like, right, you have to give some shit, right? And then they'll have to give up something. Everybody's got to sacrifice. You don't get shit without sacrificing.
That's everyday life, too. It's not just this circumstance. And people get real hard-nosed about an idea like that until you personalize it for them. It's like, well, okay, you give up a lot of time in order to make money at work. Yeah. This isn't too different.
Yeah, or else your kid becomes addicted to drugs and homeless himself. You're like, wait a minute.
All of a sudden, that starts making more sense.
Somebody important has to take a blow.
Yep.
You know, when it's us little people milling around, nobody gives a fuck, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But it directly impacts me. Now it's a problem.
Oh, okay. Now it's
Let me ask, so when it comes to like stigma, I can't even talk. Stigma.
Yeah.
De-stigmatizing. People think they're helping when they say things like the unhoused doesn't change the situation, but I know we also want to not dehumanize somebody. So when it comes to stigmas,
have you heard of that, first of all? Or, okay.
I'm sure.
Like, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah. Doesn't change the situation.
A homeless person doesn't give a fuck. I don't know if you noticed, but I haven't said it unhoused. Maybe I said it a couple of times. I'm not like, it's like, because there's so many under this umbrella of homeless, unhoused, residentially challenged, whatever the fuck you want to call it. I don't think you should add more syllables to shit, right? Like,
it's the same issue.
Homeless, unhoused, no matter what, like, I haven't met a person that's unhoused that gives a fuck what you call it. Mm-hmm. I have, when I was fucking homeless, whatever, dude, you know?
Titles don't mean shit.
It doesn't. And then you get it. And I understand, right, this person first language, but I think, like, we shouldn't, okay, right? We're trying to shift culture on how we say something, and it doesn't fucking matter anyways, right? Yeah. So what's going to destigmatize? Let me tell you a story, right? So what destigmatizes people is changing a person's behavior, right? So I was, when I was 22, I was working in the clubs. My hair was red with black tips. My homeboy had dreadlocks or boondoggles. His wife had purple dreadlocks. My wife at the time had fucking these blonde like braids. You know, we went hard, right? We were the fucking clubbers. We did a lot of drugs. Like we wanted
gremlins.
Yeah, we were like these little fucking creepers. But we had money.
Yeah,
we had money. We were getting paid a lot, like to do these shows. And I remember we went to this restaurant in Paris, mm-hmm. and it was right next to where the gondolas were. And you're outside, and it's really nice, and the fucking waiters are really proper. And that was, I don't know, these guys are just real proper. And the guy came up, and I even worked at an Italian restaurant, and I was like going through the menu, and the guy's just got his nose up, and he's like, "We have any appetizers?" And I was like, he probably didn't sound like that. That's how I hear him. Right?
Your interpretation.
Yeah. Like my grandma in my head, her voice is Angela Lansbury's, like the old English woman, you know? And she's not even English. I just want her to sound like that. But like the guy came up and he was like, "What do you have for your appetizers?" And I was like, "I'll have the bruschetta." And he was like, "Bruschetta?" Like, bruschetta? He was like, bruschetta. And I'm like, whatever the fuck that is, I will have that.
You know what I'm saying.
Don't fuck with me, dude.
Yeah.
And so he like, he wrote it down, and then he took the rest of our orders, and then we're like, hey, can we get some wine? We're gonna have some bottles of wine. We got some bottles of wine, and he brought them. He didn't even like do a presentation, you know. And we're like, whatever. He just poured our glasses. There you are, you fucking nuisances.
Yeah.
You know, and
you uncultured swine.
You uncultured swine. And we're like, whoa, okay. And then like he didn't refill ours, but there's people next to us that are all proper, and he's like, hello. You know, he was so kind to them. And then I remember, he brought the bill and he just flung it on the table.
Wow.
And we're like, what the fuck? And grabbed it, and it was like a $350 bill. Mm-hmm. Right?
Wow.
I was like, dude, and we had cash, bro. We were making a lot of money. We're selling drugs. We're making money, like partying, working in the clubs. And it wasn't a problem. We could have paid whatever bill. That's why we're there, you know? And anyways, my friend Mike, like, threw the cash on there, and I was like, dude, I'm only paying for the meal. And Mike's like, no, we're not. We're gonna tip him. We're gonna tip him good.
Tip him as
and
a
I was
fuck
like, what?
you
So
type
we
of thing.
tipped him. Yeah, we gave him a fuck you tip, dude. We tipped him half of the bill. So we gave him $175 in a tip, and I was kind of pushing against Mike at the time. I'm like, dude, fuck that fucking guy. He's like, dude, no, just fucking tip him. I'm like, fuck, man, all right. We tipped him $175, and when he left, I'm like, dude, why? And I was so bothered by that, because that dude's a shit stain, dude. Just a fucking dick. And I was like, why would you fucking do that, dude? And Mike's like, I want you to, dude, the next time, I promise you, the next time someone comes in here with dreads in their hair, black hair, or fucking boondoggles tied up, that dude's going to think twice about how he treats them, mm-hmm. right? So us who are the stigmatized, drug addicts, homeless folks, we have control over this, right? And so we can control how people see us based on our behavior. Now, some of it like isn't, some of it like unless you know, you only know what you know. Mm-hmm. So what it takes is for us like that work with the folks to get this message across. So how you behave is how people see you. And you're never going to get it perfect. And there will always be stigma for certain groups because there's stereotypes and shit like that. But part of that destigmatization mindset is also what's going to help the people grow, you know? And so you'll never stop stigma. You'll never stop people from thinking a way about a group.
Yeah, people
right?
always act shitty too. Like
it's part of the gig. It's more about them than it is about them. So what can you control? And so the gig is to talk to the stigmatized and share things with them. Teach them how to behave. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
And the behavioral change on both sides. One is within your control. The other is like, sometimes people are dicks.
Yeah, and that's just, you'll have to eat that, man.
Yep.
Like, and I've learned that in my recovery. Like, when you're in the process of growing, like, nobody's going to be fair with you, right? It's not going to be fair. People are going to treat you like shit. I knew that. I knew that, like, people are going to. I looked a certain way. I talk a certain way. I'm built a certain way. I'm like. Me personally, I'm really assertive and aggressive, and that like rubs people the wrong way. So I knew how I was. I was aware of that. I knew that people are going to be rubbed the wrong way, treat me like shit, and whatever. I'm aware of stigma, but I also am aware how to flip it, right? And so I'll eat some shit, right? I'm fully like engaged. I'm going to eat some shit, but only as long as it creates, as long as I'm benefiting from it. Does that make sense? So if I'm working with somebody and I have a boss and he's treating me like shit, I'm still getting a check. So, cool.
Yeah.
You work that check, eat that shit. Are you learning from this person? Okay, cool. Work that, eat that shit. And then once you get to a place where you're not learning anymore and you've surpassed like what you can learn from this person, now I don't got to eat your shit anymore. And then you move to the next phase where you eat someone else's shit. I'm saying.
That's freedom from that too.
Yeah. And so you have amazing control over shit. Oh shit! It's over poop.
Yeah.
But like,
If only there was an app for
if there
it.
was only. That was fucking great. Well done, sir. Well done. That's what they call a callback.
Right, yeah.
Right? You brought it right back. That was fucking good, dude.
Thank you.
You're like, thank you. It's no biggie.
Yeah.
Do this all the time. Now you're that waiter again.
Yeah.
Get that.
Dude.
But no, that's like as far as like stigma is and calling it, naming things and calling things different. Like, I don't think homeless is derogatory. It's just a thing, and there's so many different subcategories in the group. Like, you've changed it from homeless to houseless. Well done.
Right.
Still do not have a place to live right now.
Still on the streets, right? And I've never encountered anybody on the streets that gives a fuck.
Yeah.
Or has been like, don't call me that.
They're like, I didn't even know people were changing the language.
Oh God, yeah, it's silly. I think.
That makes sense. What do people, maybe it's misconceptions or just don't know about homelessness in Reno? What do they not know about being homeless in general? What's a misconception that you think you can clear up?
What about homelessness in general?
Or maybe it's just like, what do you want people to know about homelessness that you don't think that there's enough awareness about or education about?
There's a lot. Like, that it's not, well, and we were talking about earlier, that it's not going to be solved with just housing. Maybe for some, right? Maybe for situational homelessness, right?
Probably very few, though.
Yeah, but fewer than we're trying to solve a behavioral problem with a situational model when we do that, so that it won't be solved with just housing. It will not. I don't get like they keep beating the drums about that, and I don't agree. We're trying to put people straight from the street into housing. When if there's housing available, then we should prevent these people from being on the streets, right? It's so much harder to work with folks the longer you're on the streets, the harder it gets to get you off. So that's going to solve it. I don't think that food lines are going to solve it. Serving food on the streets solves the hungry problem, not the homeless problem.
Yeah.
So we can't don't start. If you ask 1,000 people, and this is, if you ask 1,000 people, like what they'll do to help the community, a lot of them are going to say, feed the homeless. You're not, I don't think it's, matter of fact, I know there's enough food in this community that nobody's really going hungry. When you serve food on the streets, what you're solving is the homeless, the not the food insecurity problem. You're solving the food options problem, right? You're just giving them an option for food, and that's cool, right? Because I see the food that comes in the shelter, and it's food, right? But it's the same every time, and you have to, when you're serving 900 people. When you're putting out 900 meals, it has to be done a certain way. So it has to be, it's just an institution-wise, right? It's institution, just like in prison, just like jail, right? So it's a food options problem. That's good. That's fine. But you're not solving homelessness, right? And so it's important that we know the difference, right? We're not really solving that problem. And if you serve too close to the shelter, you're causing a bigger problem. You're causing waste. What I mean is that if somebody from the shelter that would have otherwise eaten a tray at the shelter comes out and eats your meal, well, then that tray gets thrown away. If somebody doesn't eat it. And so I just think if you're going to serve food, like be mindful of how and where, and if you're close to a shelter, or just don't be close to a shelter. There's ways to do shit. There's a lot of rabbit holes I can go into with that, but I think that's mainly it is that we need to focus more on root causes and not just housing.
Are the homeless people here aware of you and aware of the Karma Box project, for the most part?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's not a need to go out and be here's a map of where the Karma Boxes is. They know.
No, well,
they know their resources.
They do.
Okay.
They do. It's I've been on these streets long enough.
Yes. Yeah.
To where I'm
everybody knows.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's mainly then if people do want to help, if people want to make an impact in this specific crisis that's happening, they would go to what? What would be the first step for somebody?
So we're redoing our website right now. And so I wouldn't go to the website. I would just message Karma Box on Facebook Messenger.
Oh, okay. Yeah. On Facebook Messenger or in Instagram, I'm assuming? Okay, both, yeah. Okay.
They're both tied into each other, I think.
Yeah.
Well, a DM on Instagram is different than Facebook Messenger.
Okay.
You have to have, there's two apps.
You would know more than, I don't even.
She knows.
Well, there's two apps. So, yeah, the Facebook Messenger app and then there's Instagram DMs. So they would just go to one of those and directly reach out to you guys. Is it you running the account? Is it somebody else running the account?
So it's somebody else.
Okay.
Yeah. But I have access to it. So
I'm sure from time to time.
Hey, it's Grant.
It's my baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. I birthed this thing from my womb.
Yes.
That's what
I didn't know men could have babies. This is
well, apparently you're not up on the current politics.
Yeah.
You haven't been paying attention, sir.
I stay out of it. What should people not put in the Karma Boxes?
Drugs.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm being serious. So
somebody thinks they're helping.
I don't know. I think
appreciate
dicks,
this,
dude. I don't know. We've had people put alcohol in there, and we've had folks put weed in there, which is interesting. So it's and this is more recent. Don't do that. Don't put hygiene packs in there.
Okay.
A lot of people will build hygiene packs, and they get groups of people together. We'll put a toothbrush, toothpaste, Band-Aid, a couple of Q-tips, all the things, all these little hygiene items, a tampon, whatever, and we'll put it in there, shampoo, conditioner, and then we put it in the box. And what happens is similar to when you go out to eat, and you get a condiments bag, and you just need the fork. Mm-hmm. You take the fork out and you throw the rest away. So this is what happens with these hygiene packs. So I think it's important that if you're going to do Q-tips, if that's what the hygiene item you want to put in there, then put a few in a sandwich bag and put it in there. If you're going to, separate it. If you're going to do shampoos, just do the little shampoos. Don't do a whole fucking bottle of shampoo. Yeah. Because this is just a temporary thing. It's not a long-term gig. So don't put hygiene packs in there. Just, and it's always easier when you put pop-top canned food in there.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Otherwise, somebody has to carry a can opener with them.
Yeah.
Or smash that shit open.
I know. This shit gets weird. But so just that. No drugs or alcohol, please.
That seems like someone was, kind of dropping off I don't know, they were drug trafficking or something.
No.
In the Karma Boxes.
Oh, that would be a great story. I know.
A bad idea.
It wasn't me.
Yeah,
no, I have
not. Yourself.
We got her.
If you're like somebody was just dropping off some drugs over at the melting pot.
Yeah.
That they were afraid that they would get caught and forgot to go.
It's on camera.
And so if people want to contribute, people want to volunteer, donate, where do they go to?
Just message us on our Facebook or Instagram. We're working on the website right now, so I don't want to direct anybody there and not not be able to get it. So the Facebook and Instagram.
And plug the socials on that. It's called the Karma Box on Facebook.
Karma Box Project.
Karma Box Project.
Yep. And then Karma Box Project 1 on Instagram.
Kicking.
Also, we talked to Jordan from Crow's Nest Ranch, and he
turned us on to you.
He kind of turned us on to you.
Oh yeah, no, I never met him, but I'm seeing all the shit he's doing.
Yeah.
Never met him, but I see all the shit he's doing. He's a big fucking deal, right?
He just opened up the sober living community in Truckee, and then they just opened up another one in Tahoe City, and I think they're
Tahoe City or South Lake?
They're trying to do it in South Lake.
Okay.
Or maybe it's in South Lake and they're trying to do it in Tahoe City. Either way, they're trying to make an impact in the Lake Tahoe area.
Yeah.
But yeah, he totally turned us on to you. And I had seen the Karma Box projects, but I didn't know that you were the founder. So I was like, oh my gosh, like I am so stoked. For some reason, I thought it was like a Reno Tahoe thing that they had put together, like from Reno Tahoe. I don't even know why I thought that, but I didn't look into it. I didn't do much research, obviously. But he was telling us about you and everything that you've been doing, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so excited!"
Talk to him.
Yeah.
No, I've been following him and seeing the shit that he does, and like I'm commenting on his stuff, and he's commenting on mine. So I started out like in sober living. I wanted to do that. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to do sober living. I wanted to work with these guys right when they're in there, right when they're hungry. And I was like, I had a real passion for working with folks in recovery, and then when I got up here, it shifted, and then I was able to work at a methadone clinic, and then from the methadone clinic was at the shelter, and was like, wow, then things changed a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And so I got into that area.
Yeah, you found that vein. It's where
that was it. Yeah, that was it. But that was what was my growth motivation was watching, was being in sober living and being able to work closely with people. That's why I like this guy. Like I've never met him, and I just watch. Oh my
gosh!
I'm like, dude,
you guys actually would get along amazing.
Let's get you guys to actually meet.
Dude, that would be cool. Great.
Yeah. Oh, you would love him. He's super awesome, and what they're doing is Truckee needs it, like specifically. I feel like we lived in Truckee for 3 years, and that community needs something like this, and it's the first ever. So I'm super stoked that he's doing it. And
I was actually going to do a shelter, an overnight shelter out there. What you guys, what that community does is they do in the winter, they do increment weather. So it was at a library. It's going to be at a library there, next to the sheriff's office.
Okay, yeah.
So I went out there and I toured out there when we were looking into possibly operating that shelter.
Oh.
We didn't end up doing it, but yeah, they have an increment weather shelter out there that we were going to help with a year ago. And then you look at like California, and we would have had to change, got some new licenses and stuff. It would have been a big ordeal, but yeah, we were almost out there.
Oh my gosh. Well, it would be amazing if you guys collided.
Oh, that would be great, dude. Yeah, because I see he does
Crow's Nest Ranch.
Jiu-jitsu. I train guys in boxing, so anybody in recovery.
He does Muay Thai too, so come on down.
Yeah. No, it's and I think you should do that. Like watching people that are re-entering into the society that haven't responded to life so well, that have had this maladaptive response to how things are. So and we don't behave. I mean, that's it. We're not responding well. So and we don't respond well in a panic. And when you're boxing, when you're doing Muay Thai, or when you're doing jiu-jitsu, you're like, the whole purpose is to not panic while somebody's trying to take your fucking head off, right? And when someone's coming at you, and how do you breathe and be calm in a panic and stay calm when someone's throwing them at you? And how do you stay calm when someone's on top of you, mounting you? How do you,
to strangle you? You're
trying to choke you out.
Relax.
I know, they're like, be cool, man. Are you sure?
Yeah, literally.
Cool. But you have to. You have to be calm, and that's it. And it took me years to learn that, because all the things that fuck you off in life is that you're not responding properly, and you'll see to it that you will respond terribly if you're in a panic, if you're tense, if you're this. Fucking be calm, man. Just breathe, brother.
Yeah.
That's why things like that are so great for recovery.
Oh, totally. In general, I think every human needs a physical outlet. It doesn't have to be so intense, but I think every human needs it.
For sure. And every human needs to punch somebody once in a while.
Yeah. Wait, where do you train?
Redirect Athletics.
Oh, okay. I go to Elite Boxing and CrossFit. It's kind of Midtown. It's off of Ryland.
Yeah.
In Wells, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Dude, I'd want to come over and box there, dude.
You totally should. It's like, I mean, it's half and half. The boxing ring is in the CrossFit gym and vice versa. So
yeah, I see your guys running around.
Yeah,
doing
you've
laps,
probably seen me running around. I love it so much. That community is so good, and I feel like there is, what is that house? The Eddie House.
There's Bristlecone right next to it.
Oh, okay. It's not called the Eddie.
Where
It's like where they take care of kids, like teenagers.
Okay, Eddie House.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's right there. It's right next to it, and they've gotten a lot of kids to come over.
Oh, really?
And box and do CrossFit too. Yeah, they're amazing. Like, I love the community that they've built. But yeah, if you're ever interested, they have like a free day class.
Dude, that'd be awesome. You guys got to introduce me to Jordan. Dude.
Yes, yeah, and we'll definitely
wrestle a little bit.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah. I'll put you in touch.
Perfect.
Hell yeah, brother. Thank you guys.
Yay, thank you.
Thanks for coming on, man.